You may remember there was a story that hit the news in the mid-1990s. It was about a teacher and a student. In fact, it was probably one of the biggest stories in regards to teacher and student liaisons, having sexual activities, relationships, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Mary Kay Letourneau.
Was he the young black man?
I don't know if he's all
so.
black.
Okay.
He looks like he's maybe mulatto or Indian black or something like that.
Okay.
But either way,
I'm just trying to remember if it's just helping me remember which story it was.
He was 12 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was 34 at the time.
The weirdest story.
He got her pregnant.
Yes.
And, of course, it resulted in national news. It resulted in her being jailed. And, of course, now ever since, we've had the news sort of keeping track of every incident of students and teachers having sex with one another.
Because it sells.
And so apparently ABC News decided they were going to check in with Mary Kay Letourneau to see what was going on in her life now, because she's all out of jail and she's moved on, and she's still together with the former student.
Yeah, bizarre. They love each other.
They do.
This 34-year-old woman met a 12-year-old that she fell in love with and had a baby, and went to jail for him, and then got out, and they're together, and
2 kids, I believe.
Yeah.
The details are all here. It's just a fascinating story.
But I mean, when you look at this, it makes you really wonder about people getting together with kids and in this case, ephebophilia.
That's like borderline though between pedophilia and ephebophilia. Like ephebophilia is essentially sexual being attracted
he got
to
her pregnant. No,
teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. If he was able to get her pregnant.
Right. Ephebophilia and pedophilia really hinge on when
puberty.
Puberty. So I mean, yes, some people go through puberty at 12. Some people go through puberty at 8.
Although Mary Kay Letourneau never doubted her romantic feelings toward her 12-year-old student, she now says that if she'd known the legal ramifications, she would have acted differently toward Vili Fualaau. I'm guessing on the pronunciation here, Fualaau. And she said, quote, "Had I known that all of the things were going to lay themselves out like they did legally, I sure would have really run away fast from him," she told Good Morning America's Chris Cuomo in an exclusive interview. Now, ignorance of the law is no excuse, right, Mark? How is it that people don't know these things? Is it possible that people don't spend their time and their lives browsing through law books to understand what rules they should and shouldn't live by? You think that's a possibility?
Well, I can't imagine she didn't know that she was going to get in some kind of trouble for messing around with a 12-year-old.
She might have thought She might have thought there might have been trouble. Maybe she would have gotten fired or something like that. But I don't know if she expected jail time out of it.
Well, I don't know either what she expected, but
I certainly don't think jail time's appropriate.
I don't think it's appropriate in this particular circumstance simply because of the way it worked out. But I do think that it
certainly doesn't
wrong
work out
for a 35-year-old to go messing around with a 12-year-old.
It's certainly not typical, but she felt like it was right. He felt like it was right, and they're still together. So what can you say to that? You know,
it's difficult.
It's an unusual case.
It sure is,
because you wouldn't think that a relationship like this would normally play out.
Right.
And I don't know what normal is for a relationship like this. She says, no matter what was between us, there's nothing that we could have had that would be strong enough for me to say, gee, yeah, that's okay for me to be separated from my children. In 1996, Letourneau, who was then 34, made national headlines with the news that she was pregnant with the child of her then 12-year-old student, Fualaau. Letourneau pleaded guilty to child rape and went to prison. And I don't understand how that relationship could be considered rape. I understand the law says statutory rape is that if you have sex with somebody under the age of X, then you're guilty of rape. But it's clear that this guy consented. Rape involves lack of consent.
Well, she didn't spend very long in prison, and they're
6 months. She was paroled after 6 months.
Right. That's a very short period of time. It sounds to me like she got sentenced based on people's understanding, but she according to the law, committed child rape. I know you may not agree with it, but the idea is that there's this statutory rape that basically covers people from 13 to 17, and depending on the state, sometimes it's
and then there's just rape under that age.
It basically, if you're having sex with a 12 or under, and the idea is that they can handle the adolescence thing. That's what they're trying to go for there.
I just think it's an insult to people and children who are honestly raped. Like the people that are really raped, where sex is had with them against their will.
Well,
that's what rape. I mean,
understand
to me, as someone who's never been raped, that's what rape seems to me to be about.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But they're lumping all kids up to the age of 12 together, and they had to have a cutoff point because it has to be something. I understand what you're saying, but maybe this kid at 12 years old gave his consent, but the question I'd have for you then is, can a 5-year-old give consent?
Yeah, that's such a tough question.
It is a tough question.
You would think no.
You have to write. Somebody had to write this law, and it's not an easy law to write.
I don't know if they had to write this law.
I understand you don't like that idea, but yes, this law is going to exist in any society.
I think that people,
voluntary or not,
I think that people
do not want adults having sex with kids.
Well, they don't want it, but unfortunately, it's happening a lot. Apparently,
all I'm telling you is, I don't care how voluntary your society is. It's going to be that issue's going to be handled.
I understand, and I think it should be handled on a private basis, in that if you're going to take a risk like that is messing with somebody's kid, then you're essentially messing with their parents. And Daddy might come by with a baseball bat to take care of you. That's all I'm saying.
I understand you believe that, but you also believe Daddy should go to jail for quite some time for doing that.
Well,
you believe that he should go to jail. He should be in big trouble for killing the guy.
Well, I don't know about that. If we're going to have the system that we currently do, I feel like that's okay. Of course, I would rather resolve things through nonviolent conflict. I would rather resolve things without having to throw people in jail. And I would hope that parents would be able to resolve it otherwise. But I think it's the threat of the idea that someone could come to your door with a baseball bat some night if you mess with their daughter or their son.
Well, that threat exists now, and it doesn't keep people from doing it.
Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that threat doesn't exist as much now because they think that the law will take care of it.
I don't think they think that. I mean, I'm sorry, child rapists get killed whether it's in prison or out of prison all the time. Not this woman, because her circumstances are so bizarre. But
well, and that that brings up another thing. How can you be a female rapist? I mean, that's kind of difficult, isn't it? I suppose it's possible. I don't think that happens very often. I mean, if you're a lady and you're having sex the typical way that people have sex, then there has to be a certain process that goes on with the guy in order to make it happen, right? Because sex doesn't happen unless that one factor comes into play. Now, I suppose you could, for instance, have a rape that involves another orifice, in which case, that might be rape as well. But typically, female raping a male seems really difficult.
I understand where you're coming from on that.
It seems like consent has to be involved.
Right, sure, consent has to be involved, but the idea that lawmakers had in that particular circumstances that a child under 12 cannot give consent.
Well, it's clear that this guy is a slap in the face to what those lawmakers thought.
Yeah, well,
apparently they were wrong about that because he did.
He did, and he's a little strange. The situation's a little strange. It's certainly unusual. My feeling is that if she would have, if this would have happened to her, she would have gone to jail, and they would have not been married afterwards. You'd be happy with the circumstance that she went to jail for 6 months.
I don't think she should have gone to jail.
You don't think she should have gone to jail for having sex with a 12-year-old?
No, she didn't do anything to this kid. I mean, she did what essentially is the fantasy of many young lads who have an attractive young lady for a teacher.
Yeah, well,
I don't think somebody should be put into jail for that, especially if there's consent involved. Now, if it's real rape, where a teacher or somebody else, doesn't even matter if it's a teacher, is forcing themselves on another person, yeah, let's punish that person. But if you've got consent from the individual, I can't get behind putting someone in jail for that. It seems really absurd. I mean, that's $30,000, $50,000 a year that we're paying to put someone in jail who didn't harm anybody, arguably. Some people could argue that this man was harmed, but again, they're still together. And he'll tell you that he loves his wife.
Yeah, he's happy about
There's more about her on the way here. 800-259-9231. What do you think? Should she have gone to jail? It's Free Talk Live. All right, 800-259-9231. I want to know from you if you feel like Mary Kay Letourneau should have spent the 6 months in jail that she did spend. In fact, she actually went in. She had sex with her 12-year-old student back in 1996, and she was 34 at the time. It's a pretty big age discrepancy there. I don't think most people do these sorts of things, but nonetheless, they did, and she got caught. She pleaded guilty to child rape, went to prison. She gave birth to his daughter, their daughter,
right,
while she was in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Paroled after 6 months, but then within weeks was back in prison for ignoring a court order to stay away from Mr. Fualaau. She really loves this guy.
This 12-year-old.
Well, I don't think he was 12 by that time.
At the time, he's like 13 and a half.
Pregnant again, because she had the baby in jail, got out, fraternized with her former student again, got pregnant again.
At 13 and a half, I was wearing parachute pants and Reebok, the Reebok high-top shoes and breakdancing.
You would have been irresistible to Ms. Letourneau.
Apparently.
She was released in August of 2004, and the couple married 8 months later. So it sounds like she actually spent a decent amount of time in prison, the second time. She says, quote, "I never imagined that my children would be separated from me. Had I known that, he wouldn't have been anywhere near me. I wouldn't care what I was feeling. He knows that too. I would never hope for a situation like ours," she said. "It's just what it is. Nobody should ever hope for it's not an ideal path for a teenager at all," she says. Letourneau did not for a moment second-guess her relationship with Fualaau, however, despite the fact that he was her student, saying, quote, "I'm not really one of those persons that says what's supposed to be the norm," she said. "I mean, I can see what's supposed to be the norm and I recognize it, but there's so many things in life that don't really fall into that norm." Letourneau said that very few people expected the couple to end up together for the long haul, much less
who would have expected this?
Much less remain a happily married couple. Yeah, you would think that this guy, as a young person, would have moved on.
At the very least. I mean, even if she wanted to stay with him and, she fell in love with a 12-year-old. How old is he now? He's 22
right,
or 23? He's 23 years old. I mean, he's such an entirely different human being. He should have moved on, it seems like. She should have, found another 12-year-old or something like that. I mean, it's just such a bizarre circumstance.
You almost have to give this guy a lot of credit, considering that he knocked this woman up at age 12, and then when he had the opportunity to run away from it, which, I mean, as a teenager you'd think kids would do, he decided to embrace his responsibility of being a father and stuck with her. He stuck with her. In fact, got together with her when they weren't supposed to. Had another kid together.
Yeah.
And now they're still together after 3 years out of her getting out of jail. Here's a little bit more from the story. Letourneau said that very few people expected them to remain together for the long haul, much less remain a happily married couple. "They say, wow, they're normal people," she said. "I don't think we ever cared what other people thought as far as their opinion." After the discovery that Letourneau and Fualaau were having an affair, his family filed a lawsuit against the school board, alleging it didn't do enough to protect him from his teacher.
Now, that's another one of those silly, ridiculous
frivolous
lawsuits. Come on. I mean, what's the
school board supposed to know what's going on?
Do? I mean, they're an elected body. And, come on.
Right. What are they going to do? What could you do? What can you do to prevent something like this?
Every time you put human beings together, you're going to have a problem like this. You can't,
it's inevitable,
quote unquote, protect against it. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Have an escort with every teacher, an escort with every student?
It's absurd.
It is. It's absolutely absurd.
The only thing you can do to protect against it as parents is to talk to your kids.
Oh, yeah.
That's about all you can do.
Teach your kids not to go messing around with their teachers.
Right. You can homeschool. That would guarantee that you're not going to have any strange people messing with your kids.
It wouldn't guarantee it, but it certainly would help.
Well, unless you consider yourself a strange person.
Nothing's a guarantee in this life.
Fualaau said, "I never wanted any part of it. There's a lot of guilt that put onto me about it." He's talking about the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "I never wanted to win the lawsuit. I never even wanted to pursue it. It wasn't my intention, ever. It was more of my mother's idea." Fualaau said that he spent many years in anguish after everything that happened, saying, quote, "I feel like Mary gets through a lot of it a lot better than I do. I mean, sometimes I fall back really hard just thinking about a lot that was said to me. Then I kind of wake back up and she was in prison and I wasn't." I mean, can you imagine when he's saying the things that were said to him, people were probably telling him, "Son, you've been raped."
Yeah, you've been molested.
So, and he probably didn't feel that way. He was probably thinking, gosh, she's a really nice lady. She didn't do anything wrong to me. She showed me the ropes. What are you talking about? Rape.
She's got my kid.
I don't think I'm sorry. I don't think this qualifies as rape. I don't think it does. I mean, yes, the younger kids get, the more despicable and disgusting the act becomes. Certainly. But when you've got a young person who's making it very clear to you that he or she consented to this activity, how could you doubt that he or she consented to the activity? They're telling you straight out that they understood what was going on. They may not have understood all of the ramifications, but they sure did understand that it wasn't a forceful, harmful situation. Well, not direct harm, at least.
I understand where you're coming from. I would support lowering the what their definition of a child is to say 10 or something like that. But they had to pick something. They picked it years and years ago. Now kids are getting mature earlier because of the hormones in the meat and that kind of thing. That's what I believe. That doesn't make it true. And if they get mature sooner, they're going to have sex sooner.
Right. And I think that if people are concerned with what you're suggesting, that you're encouraging child rape, I think that if you feel like Ms. Letourneau raped this young man, then you should just ostracize her. You know what? That's what you should do. If she comes into your business, you shouldn't sell things to her. You shouldn't even talk to her. You should kick her out and let her know that you think she's a child rapist. Because it's clear that she's not. She's just a lady who has a sick obsession with young boys, and she really got into it with one of them.
Well, there's a charge out there already for this, and that's statutory rape, and that is what I feel like she did. But there's the strange phenomenon.
I think statutory rape is an insult against people who have been raped.
Look, it's a charge. It's pretty clear what it is.
I see what it is, and it's an insult.
I disagree.
Yeah, we'll talk to somebody who's actually been raped and see how they feel about it. More's on the way. It's Free Talk Live. Did she rape this boy? It's Free Talk Live. Take control.
My posse's on Broadway. My posse's on Broadway. Me and Kid Sensation at home away from home in the black Benz limo with a cellular phone. I'm calling up the posse, it's time to get to ripping. I freaking each sunroof to keep you suckers tripping. Everybody's looking, if you're jealous turn around. The AMG kick keeps us closer to the ground. We're getting good grip from the 50 series tires. The Alpine's bumping, but I need the volume higher, cause the 808 kick drum makes the girlies get dumb. We're rolling Rainier and the jealous wanna get some. Every time we do this, sucker MCs wanna battle. I'm the man they love to hate, the J.R. Ewing of Seattle. Picked up the posse on 23rd and Jackson, heading for the strip. Yes, we're looking for some
23rd and Jackson. I bet Mary Kay and Vili did something strange for some change at 23rd and Jackson, but I passed that location so many times. That is Sir Mix-a-Lot, Seattle product. I just saw Sir Mix-a-Lot, not in person, but he was in one of the films at this year's Seattle International Film Festival. In fact, I saw him on screen in Queen Anne, mentioned last week, Katherine Massey Book Club, Worthless Negro from Virginia, Gus T, Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Friday, August 22, 2025. So I have been told. This is part 9, the penultimate session on Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong. We will finish it up next week, but this here week we will pick up on chapter 69. We have Sir Mix-a-Lot playing in the background. As I said, Seattle native. How could I play? How could we listen to all of this ode to Seattle and not get in Sir Mix-a-Lot and his song Posse on Broadway? Matter of fact, you could take Broadway and bang, one turn would take you to Pike Place Market, mentioned last week, where they said Vili and Mary Kay violating the conditions of her parole. Or you could stay on Broadway and continue north and swing a left on Denny, and you would go west. You could take it all the way down to Queen Anne. You would have to make one little right turn in there, but basically, yeah, you could go all the way from Broadway, either or main thoroughfare in Seattle. Why Mix-a-Lot made his smash hit riding up and down Broadway. Now, the audio that we heard at the beginning of the broadcast, 2007 Free Talk Live. This is so-called libertarian, whatever that means, talk radio. White hosts, I think. It's radio, so I couldn't see them. But this is from 2007, so way back and much closer. Well, even in context, so it's closer to when all this happened, but it's also like a decade after all this first came out. So, context. So right from the very beginning, the hosts start off and they say, so this case, Vili, is that the black boy? Woo! Has anybody seen Vili? Do you think he would be black? Because they went all over. They said, that's the black boy? Mulatto. I don't know if he's all black. What does that mean? I don't know if he's all black. What? All black? Who is all black? Al Sharpton? Chris Rock? Kunta? Shout out to LeVar Burton reading Rainbow. I don't know who is all black. Anyway, but they use so many curious phrases. Bizarre. Fascinating. Not criminal. And they with 300 times in the book, they say they love each other. They say, makes you really wonder about people getting together with kids. What you mean getting together? You mean engaging in sexual activity with a 12-year-old? That's what you mean when you say getting together? No, it does not make me wonder. It makes me say, wow, that is criminal activity and child rape. Say, Mary Kay, maybe she didn't know the legal ramifications of what might happen to her. This is a white woman in her 30s. We're not even saying, not that it would justify, we're not even saying that this is a white woman who's fresh out of, she just finished her education program. She's, 25 or something, first year teaching. She has 4 children of her own and is almost 35. I think somewhere along that stretch, oh, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be engaging in sexual activities with the little people. Okay, we got it. As a matter of fact, even in this book, at the marina where this book started, that she lied about Vili's age. She knew how old he was because they've been hanging out since he was 8. They said, how old is that boy? 18. Why would you lie to these officers and tell them that he's 18? Why would you have these notes where you're telling Vili, you can never tell anyone about us, not to kiss, not. Why would you do that? You had to know this is illegal. That's what I'm saying. Like, come on, white people just lie all the time. I did the other day to come back. I'm ignorant. See, she did the ignorant white woman. Come on. They say that, and then they got sarcastic about it. Say, well, maybe people don't browse the law books. I don't think you need to browse the law books. I mean, somewhere I think along the lines in your teaching program, I think logic and or you would be told directly, don't sleep with the students. I know when I got my teacher training certification just to teach yoga, they told us, don't sleep with your students. These are adults. You got little people, so I know somewhere that had to come up. Ethics, morals, law, somewhere. Let's see. And again, she lied about the age. Let's see. And they say, hey, a female cannot rape a male. Now, we've heard this. Dr. Tommy Curry talks about this. The man, not certainly the absurdity for someone who might be thought of as a Negro male or at least partway Negroish male. Oh, my, Leroy can't be raped. He didn't rape 15 people this morning. Leroy can't be raped. Certainly by no blonde, beautiful, lovely, white, blonde woman. No way in the world. When they said that, I even thought, now, Dr. Welsing does say, one, the white woman does the choosing if it's going to be some bedroom integration. But Dr. Welsing also said that females cannot impose sexual activity. That's what they said. See, that's what they say. Can't be no raping. Vili, at least some part of Vili had to be excited and willing for sexual activity and pregnancy to happen a few times. So get on out of here with that Mary Kay done forced and raped. That's what they say, right? They said she didn't do anything to this kid, and in fact, this is the fantasy of many kids. And I even had to pause on that. I said, okay, wait a minute. Remembering in the context of white culture, white supremacy, racism culture, Oedipus Rex. That's a big thing, like massive. They make you read that in school. Have sex with your parents, all this incorrect sexual activity. White sex. Okay. Anti-sex. Now, when we get to, is that the typical childhood fantasy? We'll just focus on the boys. To have sexual intercourse with one of my teachers who's in her mid-30s or older, and for us to have multiple children. That is crazy as hell. I don't remember anybody saying. There may have been one or two, and I mean maybe one or two. Most of the teachers I had, they were older. They were not some young, blonde, white, beautiful, blonde. Get out of here. I mean, come on. And then beyond all that, at 12, I want to have sexual activity and impregnate a teacher in her mid-third? Like, do what? That is crazy as hell. Like, I do not think that is the fantasy of most 12-year-old boys in this part of the world. Like, are you kidding? Anyway, and even if it is, Mary Kay. Oh, yeah, that is. It's criminal activity. Come on now. Let's see. She say, this man was not harmed. And in fact, if we want to see if we can do anything to stop all of this, parents can teach their children, don't you go messing with Mary Kay. I know she's blonde and beautiful, but you don't be messing with Mary Kay. That's what you learned from all of this? All of this could have been avoided if his mother, Vili Fualaau, if she had just taught him, leave white women alone, we would have never been in this situation. Come on. And then they said, imagine the strain that Vili been under all these years, people telling him he's a victim. We only have one more session to go. We haven't heard that. What we have heard is tons of people. I mean, in the book, Larry King, Vili's mom, everyone in one chorus has said, hey, Vili is not a victim. Might be part Negro, but he certainly ain't no victim. Everyone. I even paused to think, do you all think some of the mental trauma that child rape victim and victim of racism, Vili Fualaau, has experienced, do you think some of that could be, you ought to be ashamed? Sent that beautiful, blonde, white, blonde, perfect, all-American white woman to pray. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, brown boy. Do you think that could, like, guilt, like, oh, man, I done sent Mary Kay to jail. Oh, it's my fault. Oh, I think that's one. And then folks tell them, you're not a victim. You little rapist, you little brown boy, you know you're not a victim. You know that was your fantasy. Didn't you pursue it? You probably, well, you had manly urges, didn't you, Vili? You about 45. Let me see your birth certificate. How old are you? You're not even 14, are you? Do you think that could have been a form of mental illness, impact his mental health here and that for all of those years? Even, you're not a victim. They say, Vili consented. I hope the Me Too people covered all of this, that children, if you get Sally Hemings when she is 12, she cannot consent, period. This is not no long-winded debate and going back and forth and blah, 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 blah. Consent has been totally, completely nullified. Moving forward, like, and even I think some people said it seemed like Gregg Olsen and these folks cheering on Mary Kay, it seemed like they might be cheering for pedophilia. Oh my Lord, did you hear when they said, hey, I'm all for lowering the age of consent to, I don't know, 10? What in the Woody Allen? 10, they said, and he said, lower it to 10 or something like that. That means 9, 8, 7. What in the Woody Allen? Soon Yi. white people do not care. Who put that? My talk. We gonna use Mary Kay to pivot, and the age of consent ought to be a little bit lower, don't you think? Gregg Olsen, if loving you is wrong. Katherine, Massey Book Club, audio segment 1.
The posse's getting bigger, there's much too many freaks. My muffler's dragging, my suspension's getting weak. Now the freaks are getting hungry and Mix-a-Lot's treating. We stopped at Taco Bell for some Mexican eating, but Taco Bell...
Chapter 69. With the revocation of Mary Kay's parole, all hell had broken loose and the lawyers were busier than ever. Everyone from Oprah Winfrey to Barbara Walters to Connie Chung courted David Gerke and Robert Huff. David in particular shuttled back and forth from one satellite hookup to the next. It was a second chance to make the mega deal that had seemed so certain when the story first broke in the summer. Mary Kay Letourneau's incarceration for an early morning tryst with Vili Fualaau was the fade to black ending they needed. "Now you've got to finish. Now you've got the last chapter," David Gerke told producers who had passed on the project during the first wave of attention. "Now it's, God damn, she got what she deserved," or, "Oh man, this is really tragic," he said later. "If you just present it in a neutral fashion, everybody thinks, yeah, what a story, and you don't have to moralize. Now she's in prison. It's a horrible tragedy or justice." David and Susan Gerke and Bob Huff and his girlfriend flew to New York to discuss the Letourneau story with media queens Walters, Chung, and Sawyer. When they returned to Seattle, Bob Huff sent Mary Kay a packet of information about an interview with ABC, the only thing he's ever sent me here in prison. Mary Kay already knew she preferred Barbara Walters and would not consider Connie Chung at all. But Susan Gerke urged Mary Kay to talk with Diane Sawyer, too. But Mary Kay had already talked with Barbara and committed to her, so 2020's anchor would have the exclusive interview. The prisoner in the spotlight wasn't in a hurry, however. She was sick, upset about being in prison, and didn't want anyone to see her in such a miserable state. When she said yes to the interview, she didn't know that she had to do it immediately. She thought she'd have a few weeks to get her head together. But the next thing she heard was that Barbara Walters had canceled the interview. Then they, Bob Huff and David Gerke, got all upset. "You blew it with Barbara Walters, Mary. You've really messed up now. You made Barbara Walters wait. You made Larry King's producer wait for 5 hours for nothing." Behind the scenes, things were coming to a head insofar as David Gerke and his representation of Mary Kay Letourneau was concerned. The group of supporters cringed nearly every time he opened his mouth, and the groundswell against him grew. When he told a national magazine that his client was obsessed with the boy, the outrage deepened. It seemed that whenever a camera was around, David Gerke was there. But whenever she needed him, Mary Kay complained to her friends that he couldn't be reached. "You know, after she got sentenced that he didn't go see her?" a friend asked. "How could he not go see her?" Once 2 weeks went by without a visit to his client in prison. "He was in New York having dinner and doing press and other things," the friend said. David Gerke took exception to Mary Kay's friend's characterization of a star-struck lawyer indifferent to his client's needs. It was true that he didn't see her every day, and it was also true that he did let a couple of weeks lapse between face-to-face visits, but he was within reach. "I've always allowed collect calls from jail or prison, and I can almost always be reached by telephone, at home or at the office. But I don't charge enough to babysit clients and hold their hands 2 or 3 times a week. Not even the best retained, most expensive lawyer can afford to do that." A week after Mary Kay was sent to prison, Vili Fualaau appeared in disguise on American Journal. Mary Kay had what she thought was a better venue, Oprah. "I can say with all certainty that this young man is the love of my life. Otherwise, I would not have put my children through this," she said during a phone interview. She called back after her time on the prison phone was cut off. She seemed out of touch, and the audience was out for blood. David Gerke and Robert Huff sat on stage looking ridiculous and helpless. Following Oprah's lead that she didn't buy the bipolar excuse, the audience sneered too. "Bipolar, 4-polar, or no polar," said one from the gallery of mostly women. The Oprah experience was proof that there was great risk no matter whose show you went on. The Oprah people were pretty good, Kate Stewart said later, but Oprah slammed her. I don't think it was personal. I think Oprah was stressed because of her own litigation in Texas. Kate Stewart didn't run from one talk show to another. She didn't appear in the pages of national magazines to fight for her friend. She stayed behind the scenes and pressed on with the campaign for support and understanding. It was a lonely gig. When it became better known among her Chicago circle of friends that she and Mary Kay Letourneau had been college roommates, she found herself in the awkward position of defending Mary Kay to those who had been poisoned by the negative media. Some were embarrassed and dismissive. It hurt. "You know her," she told a friend. "You met her at the wedding. You know she's a friend of mine. She's sitting in jail." Often she'd be asked if she would feel differently if her son had been involved with his teacher. Of course, she told people, she wouldn't want her son to become intimate with his teacher. No mother would. But on the other hand, if her son was a boy at complete risk, as Kate believed Vili had been, and she could not do anything to save him, then maybe the love of his teacher wouldn't be so bad. She reminded her friends, her husband, and others who didn't get it, that it was about two people. Not just any boy and any woman. It had been about two people who found each other and fell in love. The mistake she made was breaking the law. She's helped that boy. She's given him the best of life. That boy would be one of the teenagers who commit suicide, Kate explained. Sometimes they softened and said they understood. She had consensual sex with a teenager. So what? Kate would repeat sometimes, driving the point home that Vili was not the only teen having sex. All the other teenagers out there are doing it anyway at 13 and 14, which Vili was doing. They don't go to prison. It's taboo, but should she go to jail for 7 years? One thing surprised Kate Stewart more than any aspect during the months of the second wave of the media war against her college friend. Why didn't her family and its prestige play a role in creating support for Mary Kay? Kate expected headlines with more understanding. If I read a story in the newspaper and it told me Rockefeller's daughter, well-educated, raised conservative Catholic, in a good home, I would think, wait a minute, why would this girl do this? I wouldn't automatically think she's a nut or a pedophile, she said later. Kate just didn't get it. Why didn't Mary Kay's background give her credibility? It wasn't Time magazine or even People. The big exclusive that so many had sought had been given to a rock magazine, Spin. Maxwell McNabb also had an assignment to write an article for Mirabella, but it was expected to be a rehash of what had happened during the months he was hanging out with the Mary Club at the jail in Kent. It was Seattle novelist and journalist Matthew Stadler, sympathetic to Mary Letourneau's plight, who took the Spin assignment and managed to actually speak with the subject of the article. Not long after it was known that he'd gathered access and taped interviews, the supermarket tabloid The Globe called offering to pay for his notes, photos, documents, and any interview tapes that he had accumulated. The writer didn't have to think twice. He turned down The Globe. KIRO-TV's pursuit was a bit dicier. Since Matthew's brother worked at the Seattle station, several people there assumed they'd have the edge. Karen O'Leary was one. "Do you have the tapes?" Karen asked. The writer hedged. "I don't know where they are." That didn't seem to suit the TV reporter. Later he learned that Karen had told his brother that he in fact had the tapes and that he'd find them. "Karen is waiting for the tapes," the brother said. Matthew Stadler was furious. "I told her I didn't know where they were, and I'm not going to find them." Another staffer called next. "He said they'd pay me money if I would find the tapes." "Not in this lifetime." Stadler got rid of everything. Making quick money by betraying Mary Kay Letourneau wasn't his style. There had already been enough of that. And deep down, he knew there would be a whole lot more. Chapter 70. The boy was Samoan, and in 1998, people began to focus on that aspect. Was it cultural? Was he some man-child from the island? Lima Skillion, executive director of the Seattle Samoan Center, a social services agency serving the 4,000 Samoans and Pacific Islanders in the area, wanted to help, she said, not ridicule. The mother of two put the word out. She wanted to know who the family was, and did they need support. No one came forward right away. But in time, word sifted throughout the community that the Samoan boy was from White Center and was the son of a single mother. Though KIRO-TV's interview in the park had showed his hands and ring, his face had been obscured. No one knew exactly which Samoan kid had the fling, or was raped, by his pretty blonde teacher. Not long after Lima's outreach, a local social worker came to inquire about the resources available in the Samoan community. Social services had a meeting finding out about how the Samoan community was looking toward this particular case. Nobody knew then who these people were, Lima Skillion recalled. She advocated a slow approach, no jumping into conclusions. They were discussing taking the child, the boy's baby, from these people. What would Samoan people do with this baby? She understood through overtures made to the social service agents that the Samoan Senior Center offered to help take care of the baby, but they didn't really know what could be done. No one knew who the boy was, or, if they did, they weren't talking. It was a nudge from a staff member in the parking lot of the White Center Albertsons grocery store that finally clued in Seattle Samoan Center Executive Director Lima Skillion. "That's the boy's aunt," the staff member said. Lima Skillion couldn't believe her eyes and ears. She didn't need to ask which boy. She knew her companion meant the boy who had become the talk of the Samoan community, the boy who was involved with his teacher. She also knew his family. The father of the clan had been a minister. She knew what kind of people they were. From what she had seen over the years, Lima Skillion could not have imagined that that particular family could be involved in such a scandal. That mother was always with this family, putting her family together, telling her children that this is not right and this is right and blah, blah, blah. And how they turn out. We've done our part. You can only do so much. I know he was from a very disciplinary family. It couldn't be a boy from that family. No, she said that early evening in the parking lot. That's not right. Her staff member nodded. Yeah, she said. Lima Skillion put her shopping aside and walked over to Suna Fualaau's sister's car and stood by the driver's window while the occupant rolled it down. "Is it true?" she asked. "About," the woman asked. "Is the boy in the news your nephew?" The woman was surprised and not at all happy about the intrusion, the question. But she admitted that it was Vili, her nephew. It bothered her that it was known among the people of the community. The aunt was in shock, Lima said later. She had just found out that the citizens and the people had discussed the case. They were more private people. There was too many people into their business. Lima offered to help in any way that she and the center could. She passed a business card through the open window. The aunt was much happier, maybe relieved. She left with words that the Samoan leader would never forget. It was a rebuttal to some things said by others in the Samoan community. "Lima," the aunt said, "we didn't teach our boy to go do what he did." Not long after running into Vili's aunt in the groceries parking lot, Lima made the same offer of help to the pastor of the Fualaau's church. She didn't discuss the case. She just told the minister that she understood what tremendous pain the family was going through, and that she and all of her resources were there for them. Suna's mother called later to thank Lima for her concern and for the offer of help. Yes, she said, they had a lawyer. Some thought the whole affair reeked of the exploitation of a young boy, but Lima Skillion viewed it differently. Though Mary should have known better, she was in love. So was the boy. "I looked at their feelings," Lima said later. "They got strong for one another. You know those emotional feelings, right or wrong. You've got to fight with your inner person there, where she acted it out. I know that the feeling was mutual for both of them. I believe it was a love deeper than we can really look at. It meant a lot to her, this whole thing here with this boy." She felt sadness for Mary Letourneau and how things would turn out for her. The boy's family was strong, she thought, and they'd make the best for him. But Mary was a tragic figure. She truly loved him for her to risk a whole lot of her heart, her life. She lost a lot more than he did. It is a sad price to pay if there was true love. Chapter 71. It was always the same song and dance, and Mary Kay Letourneau's lawyers learned the steps and the lyrics quickly. The Hollywood crowd, still seeking the rights to Mary Kay's story, wanted to secure it by putting a small amount of money down with the promise that when they placed it with a major production company and major network, they'd all get a giant payday. But David Gerke didn't want promises of more later. He wanted it now. So did Bob Huff. They wanted an offer of cash up front. "We like your connections," David said more than once. "Your proposal sounds great. Put the figure down on paper and we'll consider it." But the producers never did. One guy said he had a cashier's check for $200,000, and we told him we'd meet him at the airport. "Be sure to bring the check. Call us when you're there." That hot-to-trot producer never showed up at SeaTac. As David Gerke and Bob Huff entertained offers from mainstream American television and film companies, a unique opportunity presented itself when James Kent, a producer from the British Broadcasting Corporation, contacted the lawyers in the early spring of 1998. A veteran of more than 2 decades of producing documentaries, James Kent had seen a story about Mary Letourneau in November 1997 and was intrigued. When the teacher was arrested for the second time, his interest grew. The Brit booked a flight from London to Seattle. He didn't know it at the time, but things were about to become increasingly difficult for the legitimate press, and the BBC could certainly be considered one of the premier media outlets in the world. James Kent did not see her during that visit, but Mary Kay told him over the phone that she and her lawyers were very interested in participating in a film produced by the BBC. With that understanding, James Kent returned to London and arranged for financing. When he returned to Seattle a short time later, things had changed dramatically. By that time, messages weren't being returned by either David Gerke or Robert Huff. Mary Kay, however, still seemed supportive of the BBC production, to the extent that she made repeated calls to the producer, providing background and details that would constitute the basis for the on-camera interview that they agreed to record at the prison later in the summer. By that time, several media deals were hammered out. Sonny Grosso, a New York producer, negotiated the rights for a television movie that eventually found a home at cable's USA network. A book was also in the works. The publishing company was French, C.O.W.S, headquartered in Paris. The publisher was Robert Laffont. The rumored deal for the French book alone was $250,000. It was much more than that, David Gerke said later of the deal that gave Bob Huff a 15 to 20% agent's fee and united both convicted rapist and victim in a mutual business deal. How much Mary Kay was getting from both deals was unclear. She told friends that a trust fund with proceeds from the book was being set up for all of my children. She had no profit participation with the movie. They, Bob Huff and David Gerke, didn't want my name on anything, she said later. My involvement in any deal could be used against me by the prosecution. There was no contract for the TV movie and no direct promise of money, though at one time a lump sum was discussed in lieu of a percentage of the gross. I'm not getting anything, but I hope that there is some gift for my children. I haven't asked Susan Gerke about it, but I'm hoping. James Kent rented a house and planned to stay for 6 weeks, 4 weeks researching and 2 filming. I was caught up in a kind of media legal tangle that I had never experienced before. It clearly was a story that involved legal participants and those in the media circle around the story. In a way, they themselves got entangled in it. I think there was money to be made from the story, and I think that did complicate clear lines of command. Mary couldn't, ideally, represent herself. She was caught between her legal team and the media. The British producer knew a book deal was in the offing, but he didn't know exactly how wrapped up into the whole affair Mary Letourneau and her 2 Seattle lawyers were. The publishing company had big plans for the story, including a documentary and possibly even a theatrical release. What no one knew for the first few weeks of the spring of 1998 was what that all meant to members of the media seeking access to Mary Kay. I think they, the lawyers, themselves, to be fair, didn't realize that the publishers of the book, who had their own intended documentary planned, would have reacted so negatively to a BBC film being made. James Kent would become less charitable in his assessment of the Letourneau legal team. In the beginning, he found sympathy for their position. He sensed David Gerke and Bob Huff were in over their heads, unused to a story of the magnitude of the Letourneau case. They found themselves, let me put it this way, caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, the media, the book publishers in France, and the BBC in London, he said later. Sometimes Kate Stewart would wonder how it got so strange. There she was, darkness all around, with time to think about nothing but Mary Kay Letourneau. Kate was up at 2 a.m. waiting for a messenger to come from People magazine to take photos from Chicago to New York. She had spent half the night carefully identifying the images of Mary Kay and Steve, mostly from her 1988 wedding. They were a happy little family, she said later while reviewing the images remaining in her album. Empty pages provided silent testimony to the demand for pictures from her wedding. Mary Kay had loathed the jailhouse photos, the mug shots that had been plastered in the media. She wanted something decent out, and Kate agreed, not only because she was her friend, but also because she had a treasure trove of Mary Kay photos. That early morning as she waited, firemen were flushing the hydrants, and a spray of water hit the edge of the Stewarts' charming front porch. She kept an eye on the family dog to make sure no one woke up. But mostly she worried about the water ruining the photos in an envelope on the porch and the bizarre turn of events of the past months. How did I get involved with this crazy story? She asked herself. Chapter 72. Mary Kay Letourneau was pregnant. It was the topper of all toppers, and when it was discovered in mid-March, it pushed Mary Kay Letourneau back on the front pages of newspapers and into world headlines, though there had been barely a lull since her arrest in February. News groups chattered about her on the Internet. Talk shows geared up. American Journal came calling again. After she arrived in prison, a sonogram was performed, and it detected the heartbeat of a 6-week-old fetus. The fact that she was pregnant again moved her story into the category of the unbelievable but true. For Mary Kay, it gave her something on which to focus while she appealed her case and sought a new lawyer. She was overjoyed at the life growing within her. It was further proof of her love for Vili Fualaau. When the second pregnancy story made the news, it was attributed to Kate Stewart, a good friend from the Midwest. But she had never confirmed anything. That was a reporter's trick, she said later. They were only saying that because they got inside information from the prison and they needed a second confirmation. They just used me. They couldn't say they got it from the prison. That was illegal. They tried to get me to confirm it, but they couldn't. Abby Campbell called Michelle Jarvis to recount Vili's words when the teenager found out he was going to be a father again. "Oh, fuck," he had said. "What do you think of his reaction?" Abby asked. What could Michelle say? She figured it could be one of two things. Vili might have been horrified that he was going to be a father again, or it might have dawned on him instantly that her pregnancy could provide proof that they had sex again. For Bob Huff and David Gerke, the pregnancy meant Mary Kay had made her story worth all that much more money. And some believed that was all that mattered. As spring marched forward, Michelle Jarvis began to feel that no one really cared about Mary Kay. All they cared about was making money off her. She's nothing but a commodity. Her story is something that is fodder for the media. They own it, and it's just money-making, she said later. Bob Huff, for one, would have no part of Michelle's allegations. He had been given a job to do, to sell her story, but he insisted that didn't mean he didn't care about her. He said when visiting her in prison, at times, he was depressed for her. Whatever she is, in love with Vili or some sick monster, whatever anyone thinks, prison is not the place for Mary Kay. She's quick-witted, she's charming, she's funny. And I was more concerned about what was happening to her than she was. She'd try to cheer me up. One of the most tragic aspects of her friend's life, Michelle believed, was that Mary Kay was so wrapped up in herself and her love story that she couldn't see what was happening. She's so narcissistic that she thinks that she is so important to all those other people. She doesn't see herself for what she is, just a way for them to make money, that's all. I don't think that anybody really gives a damn about her. Does Vili? Chapter 73. In the last week in April 1998, Michelle Jarvis boarded a flight to Seattle to honor the request of her best friend. Mary Kay had asked Michelle to be Audrey's godmother. She didn't want to go and considered trying to get out of it. She had been worn down by the pressure and the hopelessness of everything that swirled around her childhood friend. Mary Kay had been mad at her for some of the things she had said on the Sally Jessy Raphael show. "I never said Vili was 20-some years old," Mary Kay protested. Michelle had processed so much her head was spinning. She thought of excuses, but her sense of duty won out. Among the items she carried on board was a copy of People magazine with Mary Kay and baby Audrey on the cover and a note from her husband, Michael. "Read it when you get on board," he said when he kissed her goodbye. She and Michael had argued over the whole affair and whether it really was a good idea for Michelle to be a part of what was happening in Seattle. They had anguished over it for months. There had even been tears the morning of the flight. From where the Jarvises sat, Audrey's baptism looked more crafted for the camera than for God. Michael wondered if Michelle was simply being used. A lot of times, Michael Jarvis said later, Mary Kay wasn't really there for Michelle. But whenever she needed something or help with her problems, Michelle was there. Michelle got to her seat and unfolded her husband's note. No words ever rang more true. Mary Kay, being the fine manipulator that she is, look where you're sitting right now. I know you love your girlfriend, regardless of how she feels about you. I know you are going to be there, because that's the kind of person that you are. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she stared out the little oval window, not focusing on anything but her thoughts. It was such a terrible mess, and Michelle knew it was far from over. She knew that because she knew her friend better than anyone else in the world. She doubted that Mary Kay still loved Vili, but she had been boxed into such a corner that she had no choice but to continue the charade. Regardless of what she thinks about Vili, she said later, she's going to have to make the world believe that she's a victim, because that's the kind of person she is. She manipulates things to that extent. It doesn't matter what she thinks of Vili, she's going to let the world believe that she's in love with him until it is convenient for her to let go. Michelle flipped through the pages of the magazine and turned her thoughts to the baby, the reason for her 2-hour flight north. What will become of Audrey? She asked herself. It was to be the perfect baptism of Audrey Lokalani. Nothing short of perfect would do, because Mary Kay Letourneau expected nothing less for any of her children. She had instructed both Kate and Michelle from her prison cell to be sure the details were just so. The ceremony was set for the chapel at Seattle University. Officials from Seattle's St. James Cathedral had refused to allow the baptism to take place there because of concerns over publicity. Mary Kay was disappointed, but that the Jesuit priest who had worked with her and Steve on their peaceful coexistence contract was officiating lessened the blow. She had ordered a beautiful lace christening gown from an exclusive boutique in Redmond, Washington, during her weeks out with Vili in January. She thought, of course, that she'd be able to be there. That morning, Mary Kay looked out the window from the prison clinic where she was being monitored for some spotting during her 9th pregnancy, and held the image of the spring sky in her mind. She wrote of the day in a journal that she kept for Audrey. Though she wasn't there, she wanted her daughter to know that she was a part of this sacred day in her heart and spirit. She made out a list so that Audrey would know who had been present. She made special mention of Michelle, of course, as her baby's godmother. Vili Fualaau, Vili's older brother, was the godfather. The ceremony was lovely. Kate had seen to it. Mary Kay saw her friend as a stand-in for her taste and sensibilities. She is me as far as aesthetics go, Mary Kay later said, making sure the crown for Audrey was perfect, the roses for the top of the cake, the details at the brunch. It was the brunch at the Marriott Hotel near SeaTac, however, that was not so perfect. Mary Kay had selected the venue because she thought that the garden theme of the dining area would be pretty, given the time of year and the love she had for flowers. Had she been there, she would have cringed at the scene. It was not a typical baptism brunch, nor could it be, but the way the Fualaus and representatives of their lawyers were acting, it was clear that the focus was not on the baby, but on the business deal that had become Audrey, Vili, and Mary Kay. Attendees had been sworn to secrecy so the media wouldn't intrude. A different name was used for the reservations at the Marriott. Bodyguards in dark glasses ran around looking in bushes, setting ground rules for photography, reminding people to keep their mouths shut to protect the Fualaus' reported $50,000 deal with the Globe. It was assumed that the whole world would converge on the hotel if someone leaked news of it, and with all the money beginning to change hands, there was the incentive to keep a lid on it. "What is this?" Kate Stewart thought, put off by the whole attitude. "This is like having lunch with the mafia." Kate brought her camera and had only needed one good shot. She had promised Mary Kay that she would get one to James Kent, the BBC producer. She ended up taking 14 rolls of film. "Suna took the negatives from me," she said later, "so in fear that they might get out somehow and jeopardize her deal, or to protect the baby, I don't know." A bodyguard took the film to a nearby photo processor and waited in the back while the prints were being made to make sure that nobody stole any pictures. Michelle was dumbfounded by the whole thing as she watched a few attendees knock back drinks in the bar. This is a baptism, for God's sake. When their eyes met, she could see that Kate was feeling the same way. What was going on here? "It's all about money," Michelle concluded later. "When it comes down to it, nothing else mattered in this whole scenario. Not the kids, not Mary Kay, not Vili, nothing but for the money that could be made." Oddly, considering their roles in the case, the lawyers had not been invited. Susan Gerke, David's wife, however, was present. When she saw Michelle Jarvis, she went up to her to tell her that she and her husband had admired the way she stood her ground during an appearance on the Sally Jessy Raphael show. "David and I were impressed with how well you did," the schoolteacher said. Michelle turned her back on Susan. "Well, if your husband hadn't done such a bad job, that wouldn't have been necessary." "It almost reduced her to tears," David Gerke said later of his wife's reaction to the remark. Paranoia and blame had settled in, and a baby's baptism was somehow lost in the mire. As David Gerke saw it later, the Globe article had just come out, and the Globe representative was bird-dogging Suna to protect her and protect Globe's rights. BBC was around, and there was talk that they had been invited in by the Chicago faction to surreptitiously videotape it. The Boston attorney was in town and was talking that the fact that Mary Kay was in prison, was all my fault. Kate had, in fact, also promised to videotape Audrey's baptism with the idea that Mary Kay's parents and the BBC would get copies. One for love, one for money. But according to Kate and others, the video was confiscated moments after she shot it. The Globe was in town and had an exclusive on the story. That meant sentiments were shoved aside. No one was to take anything from the event. Nothing but memories. It felt like nothing must come in the way of the money that was being made from the Mary Kay Letourneau story, James Kent said later. There were people who saw this as a chance to make a lot of money, and I felt very disappointed by that. Lawyer Huff didn't deny that cash was being collected from the Letourneau story, or from Audrey's baptism in particular. And he said, if the air was tinged with paranoia at the blessed ceremony, there was good reason for it. I think Suna was worried about the pictures getting out, Bob Huff said later. Suna was trying to cool it on the baby pictures because she got reamed by the judge in selling photos. Also, I think she wanted to keep the photos because they were worth money. I think Mary's friends sold some of those that Suna gave them later. Suna was really pissed about that. Meeting Vili and his family was eye-opening for Michelle. She and Mary Kay had spent hours in her Spyglass Hill bedroom dreaming of their lives and the men they would marry. Michelle had realized her dreams of a loving husband and 3 children. Sure, it wasn't exactly as she had planned, but it was close. But Mary Kay and this boy and his family seemed so far off the mark. It wasn't that Michelle didn't like or accept Vili. There was a side to him that she could see Mary Kay might have found appealing in her loneliness. Michelle's heart was touched when the 14-year-old put a white rose on a chair to symbolize Mary Kay's presence at what was to be a holy gathering. The 3 rings he had also moved her, one from Mary to him, his to her, and one for their baby, Audrey. Michelle looked at his artwork back at the house, and, like Kate, thought he was a talented artist, and some of his writings were quite deep. She could see how a woman falling apart might romanticize the boy and his abilities, and what it all could mean to her. But in reality, she knew The boy with the stubby ponytail and shaved sides of his head was also a typical teenager. Then he turns on rap music where every other word is rap music with the F word. Michelle could see the family was doing the best that they could, or at least they seemed to be trying. Audrey was getting a lot of attention, a lot of love. But what common ground did Mary Kay share with those people? None that Michelle could see. They weren't raised at the same social level as Mary Kay was. We're talking poor people. There is a huge difference. This is not against the family, it is just the facts. A shopping trip for Doc Martens at the mall became a kind of bonding experience for Kate and Vili. But he was still so young, so awkward, that Kate could never find the right moment to ask the question that lingered in the back of her mind. Will you wait for Mary Kay? Finally, she broached the subject to Suna. I want him to be happy, Vili's mother said with great conviction. I want whatever is right for my son. Just because he has 2 children with Mary does not obligate him to marry her. Kate understood. If it had been her son who had been caught up in the turmoil of such an affair, she'd have felt the same way. She might have hoped for a more positive response from Neely Fualaau, but Kate knew that only time would tell anyway. And there was a lot of time, 7 years, to be sure. Vili's grandmother was less, let's wait and see. Don't you look at another girl, she said to Vili as Kate looked on. You've got those babies. You marry that girl. You wait for her. Even before there was a second baby on the way, Mary Kay and her friends worried about whether she'd ever get Audrey back from Suna. It wasn't that she thought Suna was unfit, but simply that Mary Kay wanted to raise her own daughter herself. She had lost her first 4 to Steve, and it would be a battle on the order of a world war to get them back. For a woman who often defined herself by the children she bore, Mary Kay was desperate to retain the bond that she had tried to forge between herself, her infant daughter, and Vili. Mary's parental rights are definitely at stake here, said a close friend. As more time goes by, the more attached Suna is to Audrey. And there ain't no parting of the ways with that woman and that child, I'll tell you now. When Suna referred to Audrey, it wasn't as her granddaughter, but her own infant. She says that's my baby. My baby. But there was also another possible reason. By keeping Audrey, they kept the tabloid and book money, too. She's like the little Vanderbilt child in that family, claimed the friend. Chapter 74. The day of Audrey's baptism, April 26th. 4 women made the drive from South Seattle to Tacoma and across the Narrows Bridge to the women's prison near Gig Harbor. They came with the hope they could see Mary Kay Letourneau. Abby Campbell drove, and Kate Stewart, Michelle Jarvis, and a TV tabloid reporter for American Journal accompanied her. The reporter was along doing background, but at least Michelle suspected that she was still after a Mary Kay interview and knew that hanging out with her 3 best friends couldn't hurt her chances. By then, the 3 women were old hands at the tabloid game. Abby and Kate had been interviewed, but they'd kept their names and faces out of the news. Only Michelle had gone on camera. The women met with disappointment when, after filling out the requisite forms, they were denied the opportunity to see Mary Kay. The guards said Mary Kay was in the infirmary and could not have any visitors. One of the friends asked if they could have a tour of the prison, but that was also denied. For security reasons, the guard said, and no picture-taking on prison grounds either. When they got outside, one of the women suggested taking a group picture in front of the prison flagpole. Let's just stand together and hold hands and send Mary Kay our energy and hope that she knows we've been here. The television tabloid reporter took the photograph, and the 4 started to walk over to their car when a voice called out, "Hey, hey, run!" Abby started to yell, and the other 3 sprinted for the car. Michelle was unclear why they were running, but like a member of some kind of herd, her feet started to move. What's going on? She thought. Just as Michelle jumped into the back seat, Abby Campbell pushed the gas pedal to the floor and threw the car into reverse. The dark blur of a uniformed officer moved in their direction, and a little meter-maid-type cart was also revved up and headed their way. "What do you think you're going to do?" Michelle asked the panicked driver. "Outrun them?" "Pull over," the voice said. Abby looked blankly at the guard. "What did we do?" she asked. "We specifically told you not to take pictures on the prison grounds." "But we were in the parking lot," Abby said. The guard pointed out that the entire property was considered a secure area, and the instructions for no photography applied throughout, parking lot included. "We won't take any more." Later, the four laughed it off, but what they didn't know was that their parking lot escapade and Abby's getaway car antics had cost them something very dear. A few weeks later, each would get a letter from the prison superintendent, Alice Payne. "When staff learned of your actions and attempted to make contact with you, you attempted to elude them unsuccessfully." The prison put Mary Kay's friends on notice. They were no longer eligible to visit any inmate at the women's prison. They were banned from prison grounds for good. "I was so crushed when I got that letter," Michelle Jarvis said later. "It was just another way they are trying to destroy Mary Kay by cutting off access from people who are closest to her. Their whole mission in life is to completely crush her. They hate her. They hate her." This was an easy way to put the screws to her again. Having lost faith in David Gerke, Mary Kay's friends wanted very much to meet his partner, Robert Huff. But just as had been the experience of most of the media, the younger of the two attorneys was extremely elusive. Again, as always, no return calls. The baptism was an opportunity to see him, and both Michelle Jarvis and Kate Stewart knew it. When they finally reached him, he promised he'd either get back to them or meet them after the baptism. Though they talked that one time, mostly about money matters, he never did show up for a meeting. He told Kate that he thought money could go to Mary Kay's defense fund as long as it didn't come from us, Michelle recalled. If it came from Vili's family, then it would be okay. But we're guessing he's telling Vili's family that they can't give any money to the defense fund because it might be a problem. I'm guessing he's playing two ends against the middle. He's controlling the money totally. And as the bank account from the Letourneau story grew fatter and fatter, the friends wondered where the money was going and when it would help Mary Kay get out of prison. That first Globe article made Mary Kay's real friends wince. They knew instantly it would make their positions as defenders of a great cause even tougher than ever. Michelle and Kate saw it for the first time when they were up in Seattle for the baptism. Such good timing. An American Journal reporter told the women that she thought, as Vili's agent, Bob Huff had been paid for the photographs and interviews with Vili and Suna. Certainly the money concerned Michelle. It wasn't that someone shouldn't be paid. It was where the money was going that distressed her. As far as she knew, the defense fund had not received a penny from the selling of Mary Kay. The article's description of the to-the-moon sex, anytime and everywhere, disturbed her greatly and gave her doubt about what had really happened between Vili and Mary Kay. Kate and I thought at one point the affair she had with Vili was nothing more than sexual obsession. Maybe that's all it was, really. She said it was this incredibly spiritual, passionate thing, when it was nothing more than this heightened sexual state that she goes into. Shorewood teachers and students got a quick lesson in the reality of the supermarket tabloids around that time. A pair of Shorewood teachers was shopping at an area Walmart when one told the other she needed to get a globe. The teacher cluelessly searched the shelf while the other grabbed the tabloid and put it in her basket. "And I'm looking for a model of the Earth," she said. It was a mistake she'd never make again. Nearly from the beginning, Globe was not a planet, but a source of Mary Kay Letourneau news. One student looked at the spiffed-up pictures of Vili Fualaau staged for his daughter's baptism. The girl shook her head and pointed at the demure photographs. "This is not him. He dresses gangster style in the large shirt and baggy pants. They made him look all so neat." "Please," the mother of the Shorewood student thought. As the world beat a path to Suna's front door to learn more about her son who had been raped by his teacher, the other Fualaau children were shoved aside, leaving the attention focused on the youngest, the star of the story. He was not courted for his artistic talents, but for the fact that he had been sexually involved with a teacher. It could not have been a proud moment for any mother. Kate was certain David Gerke was either directly or through Susan Gerke's mysterious entertainment contract, television, film, literary, reaping some kind of windfall from his representation of his now famous client. The "haven't made a penny" proclamation didn't wash with her. Kate was adamant that whatever deals Bob Huff was engineering with the tabloid, media, and book publishers, David Gerke was getting a piece of the pie, too. Huff was the front man on the media deals. David was in the shadows, but he was a part of everything. He doesn't want anyone to know, she insisted later. How many attorneys do you know who profit from this kind of stuff? Not many. David Gerke shrugged off Kate's charges. He admitted his wife's story of being Mary Kay's friend could lead to big payday if the TV movie was produced. But it was Susan's deal, not his. Besides, he said, Mary wanted Susan to be a paid consultant on the project because she trusts her to do it right. Instead of getting rich, David told Kate and others that when it came to his legal fees, he gave Mary Kay a deal. I gave her my neighbors charged with rape friend in need easy plea discount, he explained later. I've joked to colleagues how little I got paid for all the work I did. I basically got a few trips out of it, and that's about it. In April 1998, a no-nonsense lawyer from Boston named Susan Howards joined Camp Mary Kay as the appellate attorney. She'd made much of her career and reputation by winning appeals for women who had been abused by boyfriends and husbands. Though she didn't publicly make a statement about Mary Kay's appellate efforts, it was considered a good bet that the alleged abuse by Steve Letourneau was going to factor into the case, too. It was the appearance by Michelle Jarvis on the Sally Jesse Raphael show in New York that led to the new lawyer. It was the one good thing that has come out of doing any media, Michelle said later. David Gerke and Bob Huff were out, and the women and men devoted to Mary Kay Letourneau could not have been happier. But the break wasn't as clean and complete as some would have liked. Bob Huff was still involved with the media deals. Somehow they'd retained that responsibility. And though he had no connection to Mary Kay other than as the broker for her story, Bob Huff sometimes called Kate after weeks of being out of reach and would say he was tired of being kept out of the loop. Like it's our fault, an exasperated Kate Stewart told a friend. Like it was Susan's fault. Like it's someone's fault. Kate couldn't figure out what Bob Huff was doing half the time, he was so elusive. He seldom got back to anyone. I don't know what kind of law he practices, she said. I don't even know if he has any other clients. She's washed her hands of David, Kate said. Cutting all ties to Bob Huff proved more difficult. I think Bob's her link to Vili, and she's afraid to hurt that, Kate said. In prison, isolated from her children, virtually ignored by her siblings, Mary Kay Letourneau saw the lawyers as her family. You know how you have members of your family, and you might not agree with everything they've done or said, but you still accept them because they are family. When she heard a particular photo had appeared in a magazine that she hadn't authorized, she suspected it had been taken from her storage locker. She was both disappointed and exasperated, but she knew who was responsible. I kept asking them, the lawyers, for a copy of the article, she told a friend later, but they never sent it to me. They were family, and she could almost forgive them. Bob Huff maintained there had never been any theft from Mary Kay's storage locker or anywhere else. He recalled how, in the summer of 1998, he and ghostwriter Bob Graham accompanied Vili to retrieve some of Mary Kay's belongings from a mini storage unit. She would say Vili should make decisions. Then he would go and do stuff, and she'd get mad. You couldn't win with her, he said. According to the lawyer, Mary Kay was upset because a cheerleading photograph showing her spread-eagled in mid-air turned up in the media. She was mad because she said it was the wrong shot. It showed her in some kind of flawed position, he said. She told me, anyone who knows anything about cheerleading can see it. It is so obvious.
Katherine Massey Book Club can't have the end of Gregg Olsen's If Loving You Is Wrong and then not include Quincy Jones, the great Quincy Jones, Garfield High School graduate. Now, he was not born, he's not a Seattle native. He and his family grew up in the Chicago area, but just like Gus T, the great Quincy Jones migrated to the Seattle area as a child. Vili's age, in fact, as I said, graduate of Garfield High School, very close to 23rd and Jackson. Mix-a-lot. Anywho, Katherine Massey Book Club, audio segment 1, all done. We will pick up chapter 75, and then we'll finish the book up next week. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. I've been saying before, because they kept saying, don't nobody care about Mary Kay. Don't nobody feel bad for Mary Kay. Don't nobody feel bad for Mary Kay. And I've been saying, do anybody feel bad for Diddy? Do anybody feel bad for Bill Cosby? I should have asked, do anybody feel bad for Vili? The number, 720-716-7300. The code, 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Tacoma, shout out Tacoma, Redmond, all little other areas that they mention in between. They did give a shout out when they were talking about getting Aubrey's baby shower and all that together, or baptism, all that stuff. I'm ignorant and I don't have children, but when they were talking about getting all that together, and they said that they were going to go to the St. James Cathedral, because Mary Kay is Catholic, and they were going to go there, but they thought the media attention and all that. And I said, hey, I have enough experience with the Catholic Church here at the Katherine Massey Book Club. Let's see what comes up with the St. James Cathedral. Dun, dun, dun. August 6, 2024. Seattle Archdiocese faces new sex abuse lawsuits naming known offenders. The main cathedral for the Seattle Archdiocese is the St. James Cathedral. The Archdiocese of Seattle faces 2 new lawsuits for alleged child sexual abuse that occurred in the 1970s and 1980s, adding to a growing list of ongoing cases against the institution. The plaintiffs say that they were sexually assaulted as children by a local Catholic school coach, as administrators and staff looked the other way. The men named in the lawsuit as perpetrators have died since the alleged abuse occurred. Attorneys representing the victims, who are only identified in the lawsuits as John Doe, say there are likely more lawsuits to come. The new claims follow a failed effort by the state to subpoena the Seattle Archdiocese for documents related to sexual abuse allegations. Dozens of child sex abuse cases have been brought against the Archdiocese over the years. 2 new lawsuits say the alleged abuse occurred in the basketball programs of Holy Family and St. John Catholic schools. Plaintiffs say the Archdiocese did nothing. to address the reports of sexual abuse after they hired Terry McGrath, who had been convicted of sexually assaulting a child in California in 1963, to coach children. And it goes on, lots more details and such, but I mean, that's pretty much every time the Catholic Church comes up anywhere in the world, this is what you're going to find. Sound like, that's what I say with Mary Kay. She's up here talking about Catholic Church and Catholic this, and I'm Catholic and I'm Catholic. Like, that does not hit the same way, I don't think, the way she intended. I don't think all the sex abuse stuff had come out to the degree that it has now 30 years ago. So it just, is that where was that modeled when you all were going to church? That's what you, like, oh yeah, and people look the other way. People don't care about children. I have to go by St. James Cathedral before we wrap up the book. Anywho, *6 if you have commentary, the email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. They're killing me. They are killing me. We have had the Katherine Massey Book Club for 13 years. Easy. 13 years. This easily has been one of the most attended books. Are you wait a minute. Is one of this, I think one account is, of course, and then the other, like, for reals, Mary Kay is that special. Mary Kay is that cool. WTH. I don't even think Gregg Olsen is that great of a writer. I mean, is Seattle has impressed y'all? That I'm telling you, if you think hearing about Queen Anne, the Space Needle, Mukilteo, Puyallup, Burien, White Center, you think hearing about it? Woo! Come up here before summer ends and we will cut foot, man. We will go to Alki Beach and cut fool. Got 5 minutes and so many people have so much to say about Mary Kay. Take 5 minutes. The first batch of people who dialed in with a hand up line should be open.
Greetings, everyone. I think the book was popular by a lot of people in the club because partly because of not just for the sex situation, but it shows how deviously low a white person can be, and at the same time make the situation that to me appears to be quite clear that we're dealing with a racist, an insane racist, but she can kind of like make it complicated in that sense. I really don't like the reading issue, but it is simple to understand. So, and you know, it's somewhat healthy for me to involve myself into reading. But anyway, I have here in my my notes. I just was thinking in the beginning that this crime they were talking about is being exploited into some weird, very weird drama. You know, I mean, all of the profiters coming out with the idea in mind of seeking ways to drain out a profit from this story based on this very evil and sick white woman, and at the expense of this child and the children that she bore, as well as the the boy's mother and other members of that care group. She had this sick idea of the money because she couldn't profit from it, from what I understood from the court, by having the money going to her children from the books, movie, TV interviews. I think all of that is just sick, just a sick, madness that I'm not surprised of, when you look into it and you see white people are in control of it. You shouldn't be surprised by it. I have here, I guess, her fellow inmates. I guess her fellow inmates were separated from Mary Kay for her security reasons. I'm pretty sure some female inmate within that prison, not one, several, would be really, really in a mood to physically do something to Mary Kay and her wise self, how wise and beautiful she is. She would have been hanging somewhere in cell C if they didn't have some kind of security for her. I would figure. I have here a world-class farce with all of these religious ceremonies regarding this child and her. I have here wicked bearer. Talking about Mary Kay. None of this should be surprising. I mean, the whole charade of white people and the people activity of religion is a worldly disgrace. I'll put it at that's first thing comes to my mind with them in religion of any type that they come in contact with.
30 seconds.
Last but not least, Sally Jesse Raphael show. I mean, I didn't watch that program, but I know it was very, very ridiculous as a program in itself, and she's one of those people also. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. Other folks who dialed in, we've not heard from you. Proceed.
Greetings, Mr. Renegade, callers, listeners. This is Fred Douglas.
Greetings.
Greetings, sir. So, we're coming off the whole Shade Robinson case. Jeffrey Dahmer is talked about frequently on program. You mentioned about Essie Mae Washington, Sally Hemings. So, I think those kind of things there, are what draw people to understand this, that avenue, that part of white supremacy racism, where you have that close manipulation of people through sex, through just intimacy. Earlier in the program, the radio hosts were talking about the rape of children, and they mentioned that that's going to happen. One of them mentioned the rape of children is going to happen, and nothing can be done. It reminded me of what J.D. Vance said while he was still a candidate for vice president about school shootings. He said there's nothing that can be done about it, and stricter gun laws are not the answer. And I think that kind of speaks to white supremacy in a way, how they view that. The rape of children, the violence are key aspects to it. And one overall theme I've noticed in the book is how easy it is for white people to dismiss harm done to non-white people. In this whole thing here, I mean, Vili is never really discussed as a victim. Any kind of pain he might have experienced, we never hear about it. You mentioned about, does Vili look black? Vili looks black depending on his haircut. I was looking at a few different photos. If it's cut low, he looks like he could be a black male. He looks like he'd be my cousin. If it's long, he looks non-white but non-black. You mentioned about shame earlier, and that's a key tool used by abusers as a means of control. They say they were willing. They will say the victim was a willing participant in the act, and the abuser might shame the victim by threatening to report the person to their parents, to authorities. And I believe, I might be mistaken about this, but I think this is one of the tactics that Jerry Sandusky used. But he's not alone. I thought it was interesting how quickly the whereabouts of Vili were told to that white reporter a few weeks ago in the reading. But the way it was discussed in the book today, when the non-white executive director of the Samoan Cultural Center went to find them, it took a while. So I wonder what that means, what that says. And then I got the impression that the family of Vili, they were blaming him for this situation. Vili's grandmother made the comment, wait for the girl, marry her. I mean, what? I mean, who is more confused about white supremacy, racism in this situation? And also we have that executive director, comments made that she had sympathy for Mary Kay, but, she was a tragic figure, but nothing about Vili. I guess another thing, how many times are the Letourneaus referred to as a happy family? I mean, what do they mean? What does this author mean by happy? And just the overall characterization of Mary Kay reminds me of the characterization of Joseph Christopher back in the 22 caliber killer. Both were supposed to be so wonderful people and loved their families. And then also I was struck by the comments about the Fualaus and their decision to want to make money from this situation, these very poor people. But when about the rape of Vili, but when Mary Kay does it, there's no problem with that. There's no issue with that. But they try to make some money. It's all tacky and trashy. I think the author seems to be upset about the Fualaus. He's not very positive towards them at all. And I wonder if that's because they did not talk with him at all, did not engage with him. There are very few quotes from that family. And anytime they are mentioned, it's kind of observations for other people about them. And just a small thing there's no consideration for why Vili might be acting in a certain way. Although, how many white kids are out there listening to rap music that contains the F word? But that's not a problem. And then the whole prison flag photo escapade and the runaway, just another example of white defiance. The rules don't apply to Mary Kay. They don't apply to those four white women. They're white. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Vili listening to the filth. Nirvana was real big. He should have been listening to Sir Mix-a-Lot. See, I didn't have to do no beeping, nothing. That's the same time period. I could stick with the 90s. Could have been listening to Mix-a-Lot. You'd have knew more about Seattle when you take the cultural trips into town, and no filth. Anyway, I got that impression as well. I think we had talked before, like we thought Gregg Olsen, many of us, we thought he didn't like Steve too much. So he seemed like he thinks Steve is just a chump and a loser and a lame and a wife beater. You are a lame if you beat up on your spouse, female, what have you. But either way, it's just, like Steve is just the worst thing in the world, I don't think he likes the Fualaus either. Like he name called Suna Fualaau. I think Lauren had pointed that out before. Like supposedly private Suna. Remember when he did that? Like I don't think he likes them at all. I don't think he would have found them too appealing even if they did speak to him. He might have some extra vindictiveness if they, they're gonna be private. No, we don't talk to you and give up all our secrets, Mr. Olsen. Beat it. Or it might be I don't like dark people. A little of both. Other folks who dialed in, if we missed you, proceed.
Can I be heard?
Z's mommy, yes, ma'am.
Greetings. So I thought it was really interesting. I think the first note I had was about Lena. I think it was the Samoan woman who had a center for Samoan people and Pacific Islanders in Seattle. And she said something about the Fualaau family could handle what they were going through because they were strong, but she didn't know how Mary could handle it. And I thought that was really interesting because, I mean, I don't even know what it means to say that the Fualaau family is strong. They're not financially strong. They're not strong enough to protect their child or their children. They don't have the ability to even have the time to care for them properly. So I just thought it was really unfortunate, and also kind of shows, I'm assuming she's Samoan and non-white, but kind of shows how confused she is and how she sees like Mary as more fragile than the Fualaau family, even though they're the ones taking care of this young child, and they're the ones whose child has been raped. And then the other note I had was about Michelle saying that Mary Kay didn't deserve prison, and she said she didn't deserve prison because she was quick-witted and funny. I think she said one other characteristic, and I just thought, like, how do those traits even determine your ability to obey laws? It doesn't indicate your morality, your judgment, or integrity, or anything. It doesn't make sense how that would make you incompatible with prison. I think she just wanted to say she was white, but I think she came up with random traits that didn't have anything to do with your ability or inability to become arrested or be tried for a crime. And then I just think the author is always, I don't like this author personally. I don't like his writing style, but I always feel like he's consistently contradicting himself. Like he said, Mary Kay expected nothing less for her children because of, I think, the standards for her baptism, which is such an obvious contradiction because you've shown proof that her children are walking around like naked into other people's apartments. Her apartment or house is filthy. They're wandering off to construction sites. And on top of that, I mean, she willingly raped a child and did something illegal that would possibly put her in a position to not have access to her children and be able to care for them. So obviously she does not care for her children, and I think maybe he should have said like he always had high standards for how they appeared to others, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she expected nothing less for her children. And I thought the scene at the baptism was just very, or christening, I can't remember, was just very tacky. I think it was Michelle and Karen just side-eyeing each other and looking at these. It felt like they were just looking at non-white people in a zoo, just acting crazy. That's like at this event. And it's so interesting how they try to apply like ideas of morality to the Fualaau family. Like they were saying, I think she said like, you know, they weren't like us. They were poor. I think she really just meant like they were non-white, but they didn't have the social decorum. And it's like, how can you act as if you're in any sort of superiority? I mean, Mary Kay Letourneau's father like cheated on his wife and produced this child with this like bipolar woman, and it's just obviously this family has a history of very incorrect and immoral behavior. So I just thought it was really interesting that the way that they tried to act at that baptism. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on was I feel like whenever the narrator is speaking, like is saying Mary Kay's quotes, like quotes that Mary Kay is saying, she does this very like aloof and slow, sad voice. I don't know, it's hard to explain it, but she'll just be like, I really didn't know that he would be hurt by this. And she doesn't do it for any other character. And I just think it's very interesting, and it keeps playing into this idea that she's just this like beautiful blonde woman who is just wrapped up in love and is just so aloof and didn't understand that she was breaking the law and raping a child. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Wrapped up in love. They could have made that. I'm surprised they didn't make that the title for this book. We can't do If Loving You Is Wrong. Wrapped Up in Love. Mary Kay Letourneau story. And then they have her wrapped up kind of risque in all the different newspapers, the Globe and People magazine and all that. Blonde. Wrapped in love. Come on. Come on. It does not get any better than tacky. When they went through all that talking about how the Fualaus, that they're poor and niggardly and other side of town and all that, I thought, are y'all talking about Mary Kay? I thought he said she couldn't afford to put gas in the car. Like, she need to see if she can get a job slanging pies. Like, man, I can't even, I don't even know if I can drive to school. You think I can get a ride? Remember, I mean, he said that. Like, man, I don't want to hear nothing about these poor and niggardly non-white people that look kind of like niggers if their hair are short enough. And yeah, we up here in Normandy Park, you are being foreclosed on. What? We could have just stopped at the gas. We ain't got to get into all the rest of it. Like, what? Do what? Just say, hey, we are racist and they kind of dark. Leave it at that. You ain't got to get to the finances. Got it. Woo. Other folks that we've missed totally. If you have commentary, proceed.
Can I be heard?
Lauren, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Evening, everyone. In chapter 70, there was a sentence, no one knew exactly which Samoan kid had the fling or was raped by his pretty blonde teacher. And in the audiobook, the way the narrator said or was raped made it sound like she didn't think it was rape. Kind of sounded like she was holding up her quotation fingers when she said those three words. It said they were discussing taking the child, the boy's baby, from these people. What would Samoan people do with this baby? That's just such a weird question to ask. I would have said it was racist. I think the author said it, so maybe it is racist, but this is in that section when he was talking about Lima Skillion, that lady from the Seattle Samoan Center. Lima Skillion, the previous caller, pointed that out. She felt sadness for Mary Letourneau and how things would turn out for her. The boy's family was strong, she thought, and they'd make the best for him, but Mary Kay was a tragic figure. And when I read that, I was just starting to wonder, well, like, if the author found a lot of people who thought Mary Kay was a victim and Vili wasn't, or if most people actually thought that. And it really could be the second one. And I was confused as to whether Lima Skillion was white or non-white. I couldn't find a picture of her. You know, I thought she was non-white because she was part of the Samoan Center, but I really don't know. And that's not the name doesn't say anything. When Mary Kay got pregnant again, when people figure out she's pregnant again in chapter 62, it said it was further proof of her love for Vili Fualaau. And I thought, no, it's further proof of the inappropriate and the illegal sexual activity that she engaged in. Whatever she is, in love with Vili or some sick monster, whatever anyone thinks, prison is not the place for Mary Kay. She's quick-witted, she's charming, she's funny. And, you know, the previous caller said something about that, section 2. And I was just wondering, like, are people who are charming, quick-witted, or funny, should they not go to greater confinement? Because those are aspects that could be attributed to people who have psychopathic characteristics. When the lady gets on the plane, Michelle, her husband, writes her the letter and calls Mary Kay a fine manipulator. I thought it was important, and one of the callers, Mr. Fred Douglas, he asked about that previously. Is anyone calling her a manipulator? And that was one instance of that. Another one, Michelle could see the family was doing the best that they could, or at least they seemed to be trying. Audrey was getting a lot of attention, a lot of love, but what common ground did Mary Kay share with those people? None that Michelle could see. I think those people, that was just code for non-white. the comment that Vili's grandmother made, about don't look at another girl. You got those babies. You marry that girl. You wait for her. Wow. VGQ, but I'm not sure that's correct guidance for Vili. And that's all I have for now. Thank you guys for listening to my thoughts.
Much obliged, Lauren. It seems like that a lot. Both. It did seem like we have one session left for next week, right? So we have the other portion for today, and then the rest for next week we'll wrap up. It is very difficult for me to think of people who thought, yes, Vili was a victim. Very short list. Like, I think one of the people for the prosecution originally who thought Mary Kay, like the first time around, that she should have went to prison, that she should not have got any chance to get some sort of the SSOA program or whatever they call it, because it was her first time and all that. It was like her, one other, but I mean, it's been very, very few people in the book. I think one of the moms who said, I don't care who it is, if it was my son or my daughter, and you tell me some 30-year-old is having sex with them and all the rest of it, I'm going to get my gun. It's like her. I mean, it's been very few people. It's been racks of people. Mary is a victim. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, can you believe it? How's she going to manage in prison? Oh, she's so fragile. Oh. Almost no one talked that way about Vili. He was 13. This is a grown white woman who's, almost 40. And, oh, my goodness. Is she going to survive? Oh. What does it mean to be white? Other folks we missed totally. We have commentary to share. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for letting me speak. Just going over basically what other people were saying. I made the same notes about grandma, victims guarantee. Poor grandma. She's another one that keeps, well, she's not another one, but it's just another example of people referring to her as a girl. This lady is in her mid-30s, and it was tragic. I went over what we read or we listened to last week, and somebody said, isn't that sad that Vili's going to wait for her? So sad that he had to be with the old raggedy. She had already had like 3 or 4 children, and then he had to waste his young time on an old, washed-up, perverted child rapist. And when the lady was saying in the reading, when they were saying like, oh my gosh, these people are poor. What does Mary Kay have in common with him and those people? They're poor. And I was thinking the same thing that you were thinking, Gus, about. I'm like, poor? Wait a minute. Mary and those guys, they didn't manage their money. Steve wasn't even a go-getter. All he could do was throw luggage at the airport. And they always were asking their family for money. These people weren't the greatest with money. And on top of that, they just kept having babies. They weren't even hardly making it with the babies they did have, and then she kept getting pregnant. So there's no room that anyone has. They don't have any room to say anything about the Fualaus. And that's all I want to say. I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Facts. They had the audacity to say that last week. I remember I was so appalled when someone in the book said, Mary, she said the same thing you did. They're under financial strain because we don't manage money well. Got to live off of Steve working at C-Tech. I just went past C-Tech this week. I saw the signs for the Highland School District. Oh, my Lord. Woo. Anyway, if I'd had more time, I would have made a field trip. But they said that last week. They said, man, Mary Kay and them struggling. She had to work at the school. She had to take care of her family. She had to take care of lame Steve. And say she just couldn't do it when they had the 2 children. That was her breaking point. And then 3, oh, Lord. And then 4, it just snapped her, you know. There's only so much you can take. I said, wait a minute. We done heard about more than one person in this book who had 4 children and they didn't do no child raping. Please. Matter of fact, Mary Kay, she better be thankful she was living off of the Fualaus, right? You in prison, who taking care of Aubrey? You up there complaining, look at all that grease in my daughter's mopper, slick black curls. Better be glad she's slanging pies in White Center. Take care of Aubrey. You'd have really been hurting and embarrassed. Incidentally, I got to make sure I get this in before we get email 1. If Mary Kay had been Lakeisha, Leroy, even if it had been reversed and Vili had been the teacher child rapist, if any of those non-white offenders I just mentioned, if they had offspring, they would have been in juvenile court and had their parental rights terminated so fast. There is no region, location, particularly not in this part of the world, it could have been other places too, where I can imagine you get convicted of child rape and then you go out and violate your parole. You go into jail for 7 years for child rape and you got young children. Oh, they are fixing to terminate your parental rights. And we got any more gay white women who want to get some babies? We got some mulatto mixed race one too, because they would probably take Aubrey too. Let's see, and I think Dorothy Roberts might co-sign on me killing the black body. I think she might co-sign on me like, oh, yeah, if Mary Kay had been Lakeisha, it wouldn't have been, I'm not going to get to see my children for a while. They would have taken her children and or terminated her parental rights. Let's see, email number 1. Let's see. The boy was Samoan. In 1998, people began to focus on that aspect. Was it cultural? Was he some man-child from the island? Was it cultural? These seem like coded language for calling them a bunch of sex-crazed, amoral heathens. The culture they should be questioning is white culture, the Catholic Church. 2, she knew what kind of people they were. From what she had seen over the years, Lima Skillion could not have imagined that particular family could be involved in such a scandal. That mother was always with this family, putting her family together. I know he was from a very disciplinary family. That treacherous Mary Kay victimized an entire non-white group of people. Facts. 3, some thought the whole affair reeked of the exploitation of a young boy, but Lima Skillion viewed it differently, though Mary Kay should have known better. She was in love. Jesus Christ. Man, our conditioning has been conditioned, even you, Miss Skillion. And she said she, talking about Mary Kay, lost more than he did. Are you out of your flipping mind? We don't even know how much Vili lost and what type of person he would have been. Maybe he wouldn't have dropped out of school if it hadn't been for Mary Kay. Maybe he would have replaced white supremacy with justice if it wasn't for Mary Kay. At minimum, maybe he wouldn't have been a teen parent attempted. All of those are better alternatives than what we got. Chapter 71, they'd all get a giant payday, but David Gerke didn't want promises or more later. He wanted it now. So did Bob Huff. They wanted an offer of cash up front. Was Vili going to be part of any deal? That's what they say. They keep saying that Vili and his mother and all them, the Fualaus, they were just trying to use Mary to come up and, get off with the pie job and everything. I ain't heard nothing like that. I wonder if the author is going to provide details of any eventual payday. The behavior of most of the suspected racists in this story is appalling, but not surprising. Chapter 72, Bob Huff and David Gerke. The pregnancy meant Mary Kay had made her story worth all that much more money. All they cared about was making money off her. White culture. 3. Michelle Jarvis, she's so narcissistic that she thinks that she is so important to all those other people. She doesn't see herself for what she is, just a way for them to make money. That's all. I don't think anybody really gives a damn about her. Does Vili? But you still support her. Facts. And I thought that was so just trashy and a whole lot of other things. Does Vili? Vili is 13 and a victim of child rape. Like, what are you talking about? Does Vili? Vili's not even supposed to have contact with her. What do you mean care about her? Vili's not even supposed to have contact with her. Vili's not even supposed to have contact. In fact, Vili shouldn't even be thinking about her. He should be going to therapy and focusing on himself, not, ooh, hope Mary Kay ain't no victim. Ooh. Let's see. 2. She had ordered a beautiful lace christening gown from an exclusive boutique, Redmond, during the weeks out with Vili in January. It was Aubrey's dress. Yes, but then, see, that's one when I heard or read about that, that's where I think it was mentioned last week, like, these children are props. All of this, even this whole event is just like a staged event for Mary Kay. The clothing, all of that. And same thing, you can't even afford to put gas in the car, but we're going to do all this extravagance and get the most expensive, like worthless dress to wear for 1 hour on one day and then never again. And we don't even have gas to put in the car. We've heard that sort of thing over and over again. We're going to do all this and ride all over town and spend all this money for a Halloween costume to wear one time and then throw it in the trash. Let's see, 4. There was also another possible reason. By keeping Aubrey, they kept the tabloid and book money too. She's like the little Vanderbilt child in the family. Comparing a poor non-white child victim to the situation of a white child member of a dynastic American family seems inappropriate, tacky, trashy, like lots. I mean, and even pause again, like for all of the racism and all of this. So we were struck. Vili is begging for shoes and stealing winter coats. For a single parent, non-white female working at a pie factory, our come up is getting child number 5 in the house, where we got another of what we already had, where the other parent is in greater confinement. That's our come up. It does not get any better than tacky and trashy metaphors. Chapter 74. For security reasons, the guard said, no picture taken on prison grounds. We specifically told you not to take pictures on the prison grounds. The prison put Mary Kay's friends on notice. They were no longer eligible to visit an inmate at the women's prison. They were banned from prison grounds. The culture of White Defiance. That's wild, because one of the listeners said the same thing, and I hadn't even said that at this point related to this context. But I mean, for the rules don't. We raping Vili at the marina at 1 a.m. with my own biological child in the car. Rules don't apply. That's why she said I couldn't even conceive of this is criminal. What do you mean? Because the laws don't even apply. What do you mean? And they said so in the book. They said prison isn't for Mary Kay. She's so quick-witted, not like you old woolly-minded niggers. You know, she's blonde and funny. I really have no idea. I thought same wisdom of psychopaths. Like, what? I thought Richard Pryor, they sent him to prison. There's a whole lot of black people that I can think like, woo, they are some hilarious folks. They will lock, man. I think Diddy is pretty charming, don't you? Bill Cosby got a comedy album, man. Don't you think Bill is quick-witted? Bill, you quick-witted, brother. I thought you, man, go watch The Cosby Show. You see him live on stage. Bill is quick-witted. quick-witted and funny, way funnier than Mary Kay. Way fun. Who out there think Mary Kay funnier than Bill Cosby? That's what I thought. Truthfully, I think Diddy is funnier than Mary Kay. Anyway, the girl shook her head and pointed at the demure. Oh my God! Oh, this is not him. He dresses gangster style in a large shirt and baggy pants. The way that they talk about Vili, it seems he should be on the FBI's most wanted list. He's a thug and a gangster, and he listens to the filth, and he rapes white women. And he got manly, or he's some kind of man child. All of that is so racist, the way that they have talked about Vili. I guess now going back what they said at the beginning, Vili, is he Negro? Is he part Negro at least? He's a little bit Negro because he got the Eazy-E CD in his pocket and all of it, because they had CDs just, you know. The man, not race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood, where Dr. Curry talks about a lot of these issues. If you really, you can't be no victim of rape. Like, what? Let's see. 3. In April 1998, 1 year before Columbine, a no-nonsense lawyer from Boston named Susan Howards joined Camp Mary Kay as the appellate attorney. Howards in later years described Mary Kay as a wonderful client. She developed a community and a network in Washington State. See Susan Howard Working for Justice patch online. Woo! Number 4, when she heard a particular photo had appeared in a magazine that she hadn't authorized, she suspected it had been taken from her storage locker. According to the lawyer, Mary Kay was upset because a cheerleading photograph showing her spread-eagled in mid-air turned up in the media. All of this concern over things which seem so trivial. She is all about appearances and props and all the rest of it. That is Mary Kay, and really a lot of the system of white supremacy is about false, fake appearances. When you have lots of lying and deception, man, that those appearances become a major component of the deception and the lie. So we got to have these images and such to trick people. Let's see. I guess we get to audio segment number 2. Let me see. I guess I'll take a quick sec, see if it's any quick notes need to get in. Let's see. When she says, I looked at their feelings, so this is the young lady with the Samoan center, Lima Skillion, where she says, I looked at their feelings. Lima said, they're not strong for one another. You know, these emotional feelings, right or wrong, you've got to fight with your inner person there. Where she acted out, I know that the feeling was mutual for both of them. I believe it was a love deeper than can really look at it. It meant a lot to her, this whole thing here with this boy. WTL. Like most of the non-white people, I would say, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I think it was already said in terms of who is more confused about what racism is. Like, oh my God, do these non-white people sound smart or informed about what it means to be classified as white or the system of racism at all? She says, she continues, this is Miss Skillion. She truly loved him. For her to risk a whole lot of her heart, her life, she lost a lot more than he did. Rhythm, I have no idea how you compute that. And then, what? She risked a whole lot of her heart. What? I don't even know what that means. Like metaphors. Let's see. Said they got darkness all around Mary Kay. Proof she gets pregnant again. That's proof of her love for Vili, not her defiance of court orders. And they continued with more of the blaming. We heard that last week. All of this blaming is David Gerke's fault and it's the groupie's fault. Hey, Mary Kay is a grown white woman. She doesn't even say she has neurodivergence. How about let's start blaming her? It's her fault. She had just followed the rules, not raping her children. we would never be here. We wouldn't have to worry about whether David Gerke did his best and, is he a competent attorney? We wouldn't have to worry about any of that. Let's see. Anything else quick to get in? Oh, wait a minute. When she says, Michelle, when she's talking to her husband, going back and forth, and she says she knew that because she knew her friend better than anyone else in the world. She doubted that Mary Kay still loved Vili, but she had been boxed into such a corner that she had no choice but to continue the charade. Regardless of what she thinks about Vili, she said later she's going to have to make the world believe she's a victim because she's the kind of person she is. She manipulates things to that extent. It doesn't matter what she thinks of Vili. She's going to let the world believe she's in love with him until it's convenient for her to let go. And I think that's what she did. Like, even with the marriage and all of that, like, oh man, because we've had a number of people that were close to her that have talked about how manipulative Mary Kay is, and I think they are totally accurate. But I think beyond that I am a victim. That is so. We heard white fragility this week. That's about 20 years before the book even came out. Mary Kay is so delicate. She's like tissue paper. Oh man. Oh, we got to be so gentle and easy. She's so demure and fragile. Now, Vili is 13. They say he's demure, which would be true since he's Vili, he's an old thug, gangster, he's going on about 50. We've heard almost everyone has said that. He was an old spirit. Even some of the same people repeated that tired, lame, clear, he's an old soul, He's an old spirit, He's a man child. They got a whole book about a Negro male. They don't call white children man children. It's just non-white males who never, ever, ever qualify for manhood. But at 12, hey, they got this old man child. They generally do that when they getting ready to talk about charging you as an adult or justifying why they had to shoot you 50 times or why you might have actually raped Mary Kay yourself. They even, in a different film, they quoted allegedly Vili's father, who's in greater confinement, where Mary Kay wound up being, where his dad allegedly finds out about all this, and they say his dad said, hey, chip off the old block. Now, I heard that. My thought was, wait a minute, did you have sex with your teacher when you were 12 years old? I don't remember that being included when we heard about Vili's dad in the book. Did you have sex? A 30-year-old white woman raped you when you were a child? Oh, okay. Because I thought that was another tacky one. Like, there's so much tacky racism in this. Like, if it's his dad had 18 children and you think, oh, okay, Vili's supposed to be out here procreating and sexually prolific. If that's what you're saying, I guess. But I mean, at 12? That's why I said, like, pretty much all of the commentary, you take what his grandmother says to him allegedly this week, like, hey, Vili, you had those babies. You stick with that girl. Girl. We've heard that throughout the book so many. How many times has Mary Kay been called a girl? This wench is on her way to 40, man. What are you talking about, girl? By the time she finished her jail term, she was 40. What do you mean, girl? Is she the female Benjamin, but she's going backwards? She's getting younger as we go? What do you mean? And then you see that, we talk about that later. Mary Kay is a girl and the victim. Vili is a man, or at least a man-child, and a rapist, and a gangster, and a thug with big britches, and flooring filth on his iPad, or I guess they did whatever, his disc player thing, or whatever. Yeah. Audio segment 2. Gregg Olsen, suspected racist, wrapped in love. Mary Kay, see, that could have been alternate title, Wrapped in Love, the Mary Kay Letourneau story. Or, If Loving You Is Wrong, Katherine Massey Book Club, context of white supremacy.
Chapter 76. While the fallen schoolteacher recounted her love story to Bob Graham, the Irish ghostwriter assigned to help her write the French book, it seemed no one was counseling Mary Kay on what she should and shouldn't say to the man. He kept pushing her during their interviews to give up the most intimate details of her relationship with Vili Fualaau. Mary Kay was reluctant to do so. It wasn't the kind of book she wanted her name on. She wanted the focus to be on her love for Vili, not their sex life. "You're not trusting me enough," she recalled the Fixo ghostwriter telling her. Mary Kay later said she felt awkward about it. She was sitting there in a visiting room with a guard right next to her, listening to every intimate detail that the ghostwriter could pull from her. Every time he asked a very personal question, she, the prison employee, would stare at me and listen, Mary Kay told a friend later. Mary Kay had been promised she'd have a chance to edit the book before publication, so there was at least that safeguard. But it really wasn't enough protection for a client who, whenever she opened her mouth, dug herself in deeper and deeper. Lawyer Susan Howards had no say over the deal made between Bob Huff and the French publisher. The book deal, friends like Kate Stewart believed, was the pot of gold the lawyers had sought from the beginning. They believed the deal wasn't about getting Mary Kay out of prison or even presenting a more positive image to the world. The only thing Bob Huff and David were concerned about was making $1 million book deal. "The only concern they've had that they've said outwardly to me is the book deal," Kate said later. Kate and others had been worried about the deal from the beginning. She didn't know if it was really in the best interest of her friend to do it. She knew it would make money. But would it really help Mary Kay's cause? It was about getting her freedom. Kate begged her friend to get another lawyer to look at the book contract. "I don't care if it's a fly-by-night attorney. Have someone else look at it. You sit on it." Mary Kay did not take her advice. She signed the agreement without a second opinion. "They pressured her," Kate recalled. The money the Fualaus received was problematic for Steve Letourneau's supporters. Though Steve cashed in also, some felt he didn't do so in a way that would make his children love their mother any less. Steve was careful about what he said. So careful, some assumed that he was some kind of a doofus who didn't have anything to say. Further, the 4 children in Alaska were not benefiting from any of the big money deals made by the Fualaus. They were out in the cold, left with the tales of their mother having sex with Vili in every room in the house, and on the swing in their yard in Normandy Park. Steve's lawyer, Gregg Olsen, considered the whole money-making effort unfortunate, not because Suna and Vili didn't have the right to do so, but because of what he worried would happen later. "I think them doing it is going to have repercussions on other innocent people, mainly the Letourneau children, later. It's not that I'm pissed off that they are doing it. I think it would be a lot more dignified if they wouldn't do it," he said. Driving home from work, Steve's divorce lawyer would listen to talk radio as an endless stream of callers weighed in on the Letourneau story. A number of times he reached for his phone and dialed all but one of the numbers. He wanted to defend his client to the 90% of the listeners who thought Steve was the problem, not his wife's obsession with the boy. Mary Kay is not a victim, he thought. Steve is. The kids are. Vili is. He never dialed the last digit. Better not to vent. There had been too much of that already. Chapter 77. Her friends didn't see it coming, and neither did Mary Kay Letourneau. But within a few months of her prison incarceration, she crossed over from person to commodity. 10 books were purportedly in the works, including her own, and the one announced by her legal team. Steve talked about a book. So did Tony Hollick. She was reminded that her voice was worth something. Her image could mean money. And she listened and accepted the idea as though it would do her some good. But the fact was that none of the deals made in her name were moving her any closer to being released to be with the young man she loved or her older children, whom she'd seen only once in the past year. Whether she could fully comprehend it in her isolation, those who had the most contact with her were the ones making the deals in her name, will never be known. Because for all the things Mary Letourneau was and would be, loyal was at the top of the list of her personal attributes. A week after Vili Fualaau unmasked himself for money on the front page of the Globe, discussions heated up at a Chicago-based production company called Towers Productions. The company had been looking at the Letourneau story as a possible show for several weeks. Jeff Tarkington and other producers there had pitched the idea to the A&E cable channel's American Justice in the fall of 1997, but it was rejected. The Globe article 6 months later brought new life to their plans. In mid-May, Jeff Tarkington started the research process that eventually included conversations with Mary Kay Letourneau and David Gerke. Both lawyer and former client seemed excited about the project, especially the lawyer. He said he'd be available for interviews when the producer came to Seattle the next month. Mary indicated that she had used A&E's programs in her classroom and thought the vehicle would offer her a positive, fair representation. She had one caveat, however. Nothing, she told Jeff, could be used in the program. Everything was off the record. She was really interested in what we had to do and what we thought. I told her we were interested in what she had to say too, but I told her I didn't know how we were going to work together if everything we talked about was off the record, Jeff Tarkington said later. Interviews lined up with David Gerke and the Letourneau's Normandy Park neighbor Tina Bernstein brought Jeff Tarkington to Seattle the second week in June 1998. When he arrived at the rental car counter in the baggage claim area at SeaTac Airport, he got the shock of his career after dialing David Gerke's law office. I got a message through Dave's assistant that he was withdrawing his interview and he would not cooperate with us at any time. Thank you very much. That was it. Jeff Tarkington couldn't believe it. He wrote letters, faxed them from Chicago to David Gerke's Seattle office. No reply. Phone messages went unreturned. Not a single word of explanation. What had happened? When he left Chicago, everything was one big green light. When he landed in Seattle, zip. I had no idea where it came from or why, he said later. I still don't. I never talked to Dave Gerke again. I can't even speculate on it. There was such an enthusiasm for what we were trying to do and for our program. And it suddenly got worse when next-door neighbor Tina Bernstein reneged on her interview. A trip to the old neighborhood to see if Tina could be persuaded was a bust. I won't talk to you, she said, standing in her doorway. I can't talk to you. The out-of-town producer explained how badly he needed her input, how she'd be the voice of concern for a neighbor and friend. Would she please reconsider? Absolutely not. Her firmness was undeniable. Please get off my property. Jeff Tarkington scrambled with the show, talking with Highline School District's Nick Latham and Susan Murphy, Dr. Julia Moore, and several other psychiatrists. The show went on as scheduled, but the experience left a bitter taste. I was struck by the many brick walls I continually ran into on trying to get answers. It seemed like there was a Loctite grip on many of the people who were closest to the case. The carrots had been dangled and yanked away. With none of the principals available, Kate wouldn't go on camera, Michelle never returned phone calls, Steve wanted to put the television stuff behind him. Jeff Tarkington was left without any insiders. Except one. Would-be writer Maxwell McNabb. Maxwell, whose own ambitions for a book deal or a screenplay had stalled inexplicably, promised that he could deliver all kinds of materials relating to the case. Plus, he told the cable guy, if he played his cards right, Maxwell could deliver an interview with head groupie Abby Campbell. He knew all the principals, he'd visited with Mary Kay in jail, and had her blessing as one of the chosen writers to tell her story. Jeff Tarkington was interested at first, very interested. But his enthusiasm waned as Maxwell became more aggressive about remuneration. He made it abundantly clear he wanted to be paid, Jeff Tarkington remembered. At one point, the producer, a little desperate for sources, trial ballooned an offer to have Maxwell serve as a consultant. He jerked the offer before Maxwell signed on. I thought better of it almost immediately and thought no. So the offer was never really truly made to Maxwell, but he really decided that that was the bandwagon that he should sort of hop on. They didn't speak again. I never returned any of his messages after I returned from Seattle. It didn't seem right to me. We don't pay for interviews, and we never have. When Boston attorney Susan Howard's first came into the picture in late spring, early summer of 1998, members of the media rejoiced. Many hoped the seesawing of interviews granted and taken away would end. But there wasn't any improvement. In fact, for the BBC producer, it appeared to go from bad to worse when he learned it was David Gerke, the affable and media-loving lawyer, not Bob Huff, who had been replaced. James Kent was bewildered and phoned Susan Howard's to sort out the mess. According to the BBC producer, the Boston lawyer was in the dark, too. What wasn't made clear to Susan Howards was that Robert Huff would retain under his contract all media liaison between subjects and the media. All contractual deals, any money, all went through Robert Huff. Susan Howards wasn't aware of that until it became clear that he did have those rights, and again the BBC had a little problem, James Kent said later. It was the modern version of an age-old tabloid story. Lawyers and members of the media tripped over each other in pursuit of who would talk and who would broadcast or write about what was said. In this case, James Kent felt great sympathy for the subject of his film. She said she wanted to do the BBC film, but her hands were tied, though to what degree she was uncertain. It was frustrating and a complete waste of time for many of those who had come to Seattle to tell the story and head back home to New York, Santa Monica, or London. If someone had only made the terms clear, some, like the BBC producer Kent, would have backed off, but no one could. And sadly for the BBC, and ultimately Mary Kay Letourneau, James Kent was under the pressure of a deadline. With money already spent and no conclusive hope that Mary would face his camera, he had to move on and look for another way to tell the story. But of course within the contract there were also things, I assume, that were not to be made public. And even when she asked for the contract at least to be given to her new lawyer Susan Howards, this seemed to be so long in coming that we had to proceed on the basis in the end that we couldn't get her. James Kent was very disappointed. He had come to Seattle with the promise and understanding that an interview with Mary would be forthcoming. He had wanted to be fair to the woman embroiled in the story her handlers were making more unseemly every day. He had wanted to look into her eyes and make an assessment based upon the hours he had spent on the case and the years he had spent interviewing people. He wanted to provide his audience with the complete, true picture of the American teacher who said she fell in love with her student. The way he viewed it, Mary Letourneau had a media battle to win, and he was just the producer to lead the charge. But as the days and weeks passed, none of what he could do for her mattered. And in the end, he just couldn't fathom the way it had turned out and the role of those around her. He was the uninvited guest at everyone's dinner table. I couldn't believe the BBC having been treated like this, having the doors been opened, invite us in, take our coat, sit us down at the table and say, "You aren't expecting any food, are you?" At one point, James Kent recalled Susan Howards telling him in a phone conversation that he had progressed this film prematurely before having all the consents. He found the statement outrageous. "Hold on," he said he told the Boston attorney. "I have a go-ahead from her lawyer. I have a go-ahead from the subject of the film. I've spoken to the subject of the film repeatedly, who told me an interview would happen, but to just be patient. I've got access to her good friends. At what point does one embark on a film?" James Kent had a thought that he knew was as true as anything he learned about the Letourneau case. She was let down by those around her. Within the group of friends who became enmeshed with Mary Kay Letourneau, cause célèbre, there was one whom the others would consider a traitor, Maxwell McNabb. As Kate saw the situation, Max was a starving writer who ingratiated himself, won the confidence of Mary Kay and her supporters, and burned them with a tell-all article in Mirabella. Mary Kay felt that she and her friends had been used and betrayed. Max had said he was writing a screenplay. He got close to her and sold his soul for $7,000 to Mirabella, and wrote an article that he never acknowledged he would write, Kate said later, still bitter. But Maxwell went further, an irritation that outraged her friends and harmed the convicted teacher's fundraising efforts. Kate heard from other media sources how Maxwell had continued to peddle his so-called inside information to other shows. A&E producer Jeff Tarkington called Kate in Chicago about McNabb and his offer of material for money. "Do I need him?" he asked. "No," Kate said firmly. "He's an outsider and he's trying to get back inside. He was on the inside and he twisted the knife. I'll give you all the information you need." Articles about Mary Kay Letourneau were translated into German, French, Spanish, and Dutch. Outside of America, it was seen as a love story, pure and simple. The idea that Americans passed judgment on it had more to do with a gut reaction springing from antiquated, deep-in-the-culture, puritanical roots than whether it was really wrong. It seemed to Mary Kay that the lack of understanding surrounding her story was driven by the media. Whenever information about her love for Vili came out, it brought knowing snickers. She and Vili had a secret code, a way to say, "I love you," without others knowing. It was through a look or things they did, anything at all, with their left hands. I know some think that sounds juvenile, but I don't care. It is quite pathetic that people take everything, dissect it, and pronounce its worth by calling it juvenile. It was a way for us to say we loved each other, and we'll use the same ways when I'm 100 years old, Mary Kay said later. Chapter 75. Reporters live and die by the tips that come their way. On the morning of a legal conference with lawyers to discuss their next move in the lawsuit, the television reporter at the center of the legal storm got a tip that Vili Fualaau and Mary Kay Letourneau were on the front cover of the Globe. A few calls later, the grainy image from a fax machine spit out the pages from the May 5, 1998 issue. Jailed teacher's 6th-grade lover tells all. The 4-page special report detailed how Vili and his teacher had had sex in every room of the Letourneau home, on the deck, even on a yard swing. The boy who Bob Huff had said wanted nothing but to be left alone was blabbing about the most intimate details of his life. And his mother, who had wrung her hands with worry over the impact of the KIRO interview, was spilling her guts, too. As if she hadn't even paid attention to the sexual escapades described by her son, Suna told the world how Vili's romance with his teacher was based on true love, not lust. Karen O'Leary waved the facts in front of the lawyers. She knew the law. Her estranged husband was a lawyer. So were her father and her brother. Everyone in the room was aware that the article had been of the type where money had changed hands. But just how much? They knew Suna had been paid a few thousand for the American Journal interview, but this was a bigger deal. $25,000? $50,000? Maybe more? One thing was certain, Bob Huff's lawsuit was toast. It was a bombshell that totally undermined their case about violating this boy's privacy, with the boy plastered all over this tabloid about losing his virginity, Karen said later. This was manna from heaven. It just showed the lies that was their case. Michelle Jarvis couldn't bear the sight of Steve Letourneau on television. She refused to watch Oprah Winfrey's talk show earlier in the year because she knew that Steve was appearing on the program. She saw him as a man whose primary purpose was to destroy his wife, to make her pay. She remembered what Mary Kay had told her he said when their battle turned ugly. "I will win." "He hasn't finished with her yet," Michelle told a friend. "Every minute that he torments her, he's happy. That's his motivation to go on living. She says that he's a good father. I don't know that he cares about those kids. I don't know that she does." If Michelle couldn't face watching Steve Letourneau on television, Kate Stewart stayed up late one night to catch Steve and his girlfriend Kelly Whalen on one of the tabloid shows that had claimed them as their exclusive prize. The whole idea of Kelly appearing on TV sent Kate reeling. Why would she ever put her face out there, standing by her man like Hillary? He's going through a divorce and he has a live-in lover. As time passed and the media frenzy continued, Steve's comments in the newspapers and appearances on television not only irritated Kate, but she felt they gave the world a true and unflattering glimpse at the man behind the woman and the boy. "Look what he's done to his family," she told a friend, her voice rising to stress the importance of what she had to say. "Why did he have to try his wife in the press at his children's expense? Let's have the world look at that one. That's the one thing from a religious standpoint that he's going to come down and die on that one. He could have handled it in private. They were going to. His ego couldn't take it." Steve Letourneau's media appearances were as dangerous as a baby crawling on broken glass. By putting himself out there in front of America and the world, he was risking having his own behavior made public. It wouldn't be hard for the disclosure of his affairs and the fact that he had fathered another woman's baby to give the sympathetic and the fence-sitters a reason to believe in Mary Kay. Steve, with his deer-in-the-headlights gaze, was a tragic figure, and most could rally around him. But the more he said, the more he tried to compete with his wife's relentless media assault, the greater the chance that a reporter would ask, "What were you doing when your wife was sleeping with a 6th grader?" Secret Squirrel Linda Gardner confronted Steve after another of the endless waves of media interest. "Steve, You might think it is kind of neat having these people wanting to interview you. Someone is going to dig out all of it, and you are going to be made out to look like the bad guy. Steve pooh-poohed her worries. We need the money, he said. We're broke. I've got 4 kids to raise. But it was the children who were precisely the reason Linda advised against the media blitz. Your kids are seeing it, she said. Even Kelly weighed in with a defense. They were, in fact, doing it for the children. There was no child support from their mother. We're not getting any money from Mary Kay, she told Linda. Steve's cousin's wife, Linda, was incredulous. She's in prison, she reminded them. What does she get, $10 a month? As time passed and Steve's face became a bit more familiar in magazines and on television, Linda calculated what kind of money the effort was bringing to the Alaska coffers. The figures she heard from Steve and other family members put it at $30,000 or more. But the money didn't seem to go far enough. I know the money is gone, she said later, to pay bills, buy a computer, go to Nordstrom to go shopping, Eddie Bauer. She made another stab at getting Steve to see the light and confronted him. Steve, you are a fool. Get off of the TV. What are you doing? People know you're getting paid. Don't talk to those trashy magazines. Don't talk to American Journal. You might as well talk to the Globe. He didn't listen. Not when his wife was a superstar, and he was known as the man who had been pushed out of his marital bed by a kid who didn't even shave yet.
Old Gregg Olsen is no fan of Steve Letourneau. Even that, pushed out of the bed. Wait a minute. Y'all, again, you're framing this like this was an affair, and, he wasn't. Mary Kay raped a child. Period. Katherine Massey Book Club. We will wrap it up next week. No fan of Steve. What they say, we got another book, film, just gonna treat the white man like a pincushion. Just beat up on the white man. Just beat up on the white man. It's all Steve's fault, old lame Steve, and you didn't do it right, and you're not a man, and you don't wear the breeches in the family. Post Steve. I think this might be the first time ever where you stop beating up on the white man. Just stop it. Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. We definitely got to wrap this one up next week. Katherine Massey Book Club. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. Email number 2. Hi, Gus. Cal's audience, racism and deviance motivated Mary Kay to abuse Vili and the author into writing this book. I cannot think of any white victim of child sexual abuse whose trauma has been exploited in this way and in real time. As the callers highlighted, Mary Kay was able to continuously victimize Vili because he is not white. The teachers ignored the rape because Vili is not white. Vili would have received support and understanding, not suspensions from school for acting out in various ways after being victimized by Mary Kay and then the media. Can you imagine what must have been going through mentally, what he must have been going through mentally as he grew up, reconciling his abuse while being brainwashed by Mary Kay into thinking he was the initiator, the same modus operandi as Woody Allen. That is what he says, soon ye put the moves on me, see? Having 2 children with his rapist, then having her, the media, and other adults in Seattle, the world, identify him as the person that took advantage of his rapist. And his grandmother, you better marry that girl. Don't you run out with it. You wait for her. Victims guaranteed qualified, but I don't want to hear nothing about no non-white people. We are smart about racism. We are not. Gregg Olsen and the racist suspects in Seattle turned Vili into an aggressive perpetrator and Mary Kay into the victim when she was in fact the child-raping lawless thug. That's right, they call Vili, oh, gangster. Mary Kay is the only gangster in this here book. She got groupies and all that. Vili's a gang. Get out of here. 3. The Oprah people were pretty good, Katie Stewart said later, but Oprah slammed her. I didn't think it was personal. I think Oprah was stressed because of her own litigation in Texas. Or maybe Oprah Winfrey doesn't like child rapists. But on the other hand, if her son was a boy at complete risk, Kate believed Vili had been, she could not do anything to save him. Then maybe the love of his teacher wouldn't have been so bad. No one is that stupid, and white people understand what child sexual abuse is. Kate's children should have been questioned about whether their mother sold them out to strangers. If she was a black mother making this statement, her children would have been taken away and put in foster care. 5. The mistake she made was breaking the law. She's helped that boy. She's given him the best life. Yikes. That boy would be one of the teenagers who commits suicide. Double yikes. He said he almost committed suicide anyway as a result of this. Get out of here. Being raped by a teacher is suicide prevention. Okay. Someone tell Sue Klebold. Vili did grow up to suffer from depression, and something tells me Mary Kay was the cause of the cure. Was not the cure. She was not. And there's a white. I have to play this in the documentary that I played last week. It's called Mary Kay Letourneau, Notes on a Scandal. In that documentary, when you get towards the end, it's like 90 minutes. When you get towards the end, they speak with a white doctor, and I think he reviewed this case at the time. I think he's like a psychiatrist, whatever the case may be. But he said Vili did an interview in like 2010 on the Today Show, and he said he went to a dark place after all this, and he didn't think he was going to live. And the person doing the interview, that same thing, you not no victim, Vili. Stop, you just up here engaging in hyperbole and talking all that fool talk. You stop pulling that leg, Vili. And Vili said, nah, man, it was real tough, man. Like, it was a whole lot of days I just didn't want to go through this anymore, and my mind was all messed up, and I didn't think I was going to make it. So they cut back from that, and they go back to the white doctor. He said he didn't think he was going to live through this, so obviously it did have an impact on him. All the people saying, this wasn't fair, this was love, this was a fairy, all of that is nonsense. This is child rape, nothing else. Love ain't got nothing to do with it. And yeah, Vili could have died. According to his own testimony, we should believe him. And he was raped as a child. Duh. That would have an impact on you. Unless you're an old filth-florin gangster half Negro in White Center, well then, hey, you've been raping since you were 2 anyway. Raping and thugging in White Center. I don't like how you talk about White Center in this book either. I didn't live in White Center, but I lived close enough that I take offense. I think it's racist, and yes. The number is 720-716-7300, decode 564943, pound, press star 61 if you would like to participate. And he act like they just thug and dangerous in White Center. Man, please. Greg Powell was right here in downtown Seattle, and he got shot in broad daylight by a white man, 68-year-old Navy veteran. That didn't happen in White Center. That was right. I could walk to downtown. That's walking distance from Pike Place Market, where Vili, Mary Kay violating conditions of her release. Talk about thugging in White Center. Get out of here. Grin. I could light up a whole lot of. They just closed the grocery store in Lake City Way. That's the northern part of Seattle. Closed the grocery store. They say crime, stabbings, drugs, And this is where white people live. You can't even blame this on Vili and the non-white thugs and their bumpity-bump, filth-flooring, bumpity-bump, nope. Shout to White Center. I don't have people talk bad about White Center, Rat City. Star 61 if you have commentary to share. Let's see. All of the folks who are with us, Z's mommy, caller at 3215, Lauren, retired firefighter, Mr. Douglas, all with us. And then we have folks that we missed totally. If you have Mary Kay commentary, again, we are wrapping it all up next week. So final thoughts, observations. Did we waste time? Is this book about race? I almost feel ignorant now, like Jesus Christ. I thought this case didn't have nothing to do with race. Jesus Christ, Neely Fuller Jr., man, thank you so much. If it hadn't been for Fuller, we would not have read this book. He is the only person who said, hey, man, Mary Kay, yes, that right there, even with all this nonsense that we're hearing now, that right there is sexual activity with white people every time. Every time. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, proceed.
Can I be heard?
Retired firefighter in Florida.
Yes, more so than the central factor being child rape. I also think that this is a practice of white culture in general. It's not just Mary Kay that is in their behavior. The author is including the behavior of a lot of white people following up on what Mary Kay is doing as a singular white person. They are, casting their means to be able to profit from it, including her, of course, but as though this is not the first time something like this occurs when white people get involved with non-white people. Has to be some sort of negative relationship, and sex is probably one of the biggest weapons that they use against non-white people. And I have that's basically what my thoughts were by listening to the second report. That's basically all I have. Thanks for listening.
Much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. Other folks with a hand up.
Can I be heard?
Lauren, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I only have a couple of things. One, this was in chapter 76. It said the money the Fualaus received was problematic for Steve Letourneau's supporters. Though Steve cashed in also, some felt he didn't do so in a way that would make his children love their mother any less. Steve was careful about what he said. So careful, some assumed that he was some sort of doofus who didn't have anything to say. I just thought that was contradictory to what was written in the previous chapter, chapter 75. It said, look what he's done to his family, he told a friend, her voice rising to stress the importance of what she had to say. Why did he have to try his wife in the press and at his children's expense? Let's have the world look at that one. That's the one thing from a religious standpoint that he's going to come down and die on that one. He could have handled it in private. They were going to. His ego couldn't take it. Steve Letourneau's media appearances were as dangerous as a baby crawling on broken glass. Now, that broken glass part, that was written by the author, and also made me think about the carpet tax. Like, was it as dangerous as children walking around with carpet tax all over the place? But those things seem contradictory, and they came right behind each other. So I just thought I should say something about that. And also it said, because of all the things Mary Letourneau was and would be, Loyal was at the top of the list of her personal attributes. This white woman was married, had 4 children when she started raping a 12-year-old. I don't know their definition of loyal, but I just think that's an interesting line. That's all I have.
Facts. Much obliged. Lauren, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know what you mean by loyal, but I mean maybe be loyal to your 4 offspring. How about don't violate the conditions of your parole so you can be around to raise them? Maybe that would be loyalty. Nah. She was loyal to Vili. She hung out 2nd grade and they hung on in there. 7 years in prison. She was loyal to Vili. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in, you have hand up. Line should be open.
Just not to defend Steve, because come on, but he did take the children and get them away from Mary, and he also, I guess he was trying to get some money because they were going to pay him for some of these interviews or whatever. And, once again, they was like, Steve, you's a sucker. Get out of the press and you dragging Mary like that. What are you doing? Hey, Steve, you can't catch a break in this book. My line.
Poor Steve. But I know I said, dang, I don't ever remember a book where, dang, we end up getting to sympathize with the white. I think poor Steve, poor white brother, come over, just sit down. We'll commiserate. We'll come over. They got the restaurant next to SeaTac Airport. We'll stop by happy hour and you tell us about old lame Mary Kay. We'll sit around name call her for an hour or so with you. It's bad, man. It's bad. And I was thinking the same thing. Like, wait a minute. Steve got 4 children. It's the same thing with Fualaau. And I got all these babies. Mary Kay, we done went in on all these children. Now you in prison for 7 years. Won't like I was Elon Musk rich before that, slanging suitcases. Now I might lost my job. I'm up here in Alaska. What am I going to do? And we went into foreclosure. Don't sound like I'm going to have A1 credit. Mary Kay running around. We didn't even have gas money. I can't get a few nickels talking about what I went through. They done already, what they say, dragged us through the mud. What kind of lame is you, Steve? I can't get a little bit of lunch money for the children? Dang. A white man can't catch a break. Dang. That's why I said we have got to wrap this here thing up. Woo! Next week. Other folks that we have not heard from. We nabbed everybody. Didn't miss anybody. Grant, we'll assume. I'll keep an eye out in case we have hands I did not see at all. And then, let's see, email number 1. Now I can finish the rest of it. Chapter 75. As if she hadn't even paid attention to the sexual escapades described by her son, Suna told the world how Vili's romance with his teacher was based on true love, not lust. The 8th area of people activity is such a powerful source of confusion in non-white victims. Facts. I will say the confusion on this is so massive because they have the concept hypergamy. Most non-white people, what? You got a white girlfriend or a white boyfriend. You can have a child with a white person. For many, many non-white people, if not most, victims of racism, that's a good thing. You'll have children with lighter skin tone, maybe good hair. Maybe you got a white person with a few nickels. Most of us, that's not, oh my God, you brought a race soldier into the, nah. So just off the rip, lots of it. Like, wow, Vili, you did right, man. They didn't get somebody like your old lame dad in prison. Then I remember they sounded like this in court. Like they could have taken the exact transcript from court, because Vili Fualaau, she got up in court like, please don't send Mary to prison. Vili's not a victim. She's a part of our family. Victims guaranteed qualify. I also said that, hey, that is mother of her granddaughter. That's the mother of her granddaughter. So, I mean, yeah, I do have vested interest in seeing she not go to prison. Brainwashed we have been. Brain trashed, really. 2, why did he have to try his wife in the press at his children's expense? Let's have the world look at that one. That's the one thing from a religious standpoint that he's going to come down and die on. That one seems reasonable that he should be a little angry. She had sex with a child and took his child out to fool him. Come on, Stevie Jr., we gonna go by the marina. That also, I can't say nothing about that. I can't even testify that that happened. I just shut up and, go get the rest of my luggage, Steve. It's hard out here on a white man. Number 3. Steve poo-pooed her worries. We need the money. He said, we're broke. I've got 4 kids to raise, but it wasn't the children who were precisely the reason Linda advised against the media blitz. Your kids are seeing it, she said. Steve ain't no saint. Isn't that what they say about black males? Yep, that is what it is. He ain't no angel. Chapter 76, Steve's lawyer, Greg Gahn, considered the whole money-making effort unfortunate, not because Suna and Vili didn't have the right to do so, but because of what he worried would happen. He wanted to defend his client to the 90% of the listeners who thought Steve was the problem, not his wife's obsession with the boy. Mary Kay is not a victim, he thought. Steve is. The kids are. Vili is, hey, one time. Vili is over there, hey. I doubt Steve's lawyer had sincere concern for Vili and Suna. I think that's probably true as well. But at least at least lip service. Vili is a victim. Now, he did get to Vili last. I guess Steve is a victim here. If we're going to do our victim, we should start with Vili, then the Letourneau children, then Steve. That would be appropriate, I think. But, most people don't even have Vili. You scratch Vili's name out, put Mary Kay's name. That Mary Kay is a victim here, too, you see. She's been exploited. The Globe didn't do right by Mary Kay. Oprah didn't either. Hey, Chapter 77. Because for all things, Mary Letourneau was and would be loyal, was at the top of the list of personal attributes. This does not seem accurate. We said the same thing. 2. Articles about Mary Letourneau were translated into German, French, Spanish, and Dutch. Outside of America, it was seen as a love story, pure and simple. The idea that Americans passed judgment on it had more to do with a gut reaction springing from antiquated, deep in the culture, puritanical roots than whether it was really wrong. I guess pedophilia is more accepted by white people in so-called European countries, and I think we heard that before in the text. He said, hey, Mary Kay, if she's done this in other parts of the world, it wouldn't even been a crime. It's just been something. We just sneaker about it and move on. Promoting child rape. See, they said it today. We should lower that age of consent. Make 9, 8. People mature quick now. 3. She and Vili had a secret code. Way to say I love you without others knowing. It was through a look or things they did. Anything at all. With her left hand. I know some think that sounds juvenile, but I don't care. Mary Kay just makes me want to scream. You are not a schoolgirl. This is not some kind of high school romance. Facts. I do feel like there's so much of that through the book where she's trying to act or portray that she is some 10-year. She and Vili are both 12. We were in the same class. And that's not what this is. I think white people do a lot of that, where white people can be infantilized, where it goes right in with their I'm just naive and stupid and ignorant. I'm 12. I didn't even know that they got. What do you mean statutory rape? I can't even spell all that. What does that mean? You're a 35-year-old white woman. You're not a girl. You're not a child. They even get us. They got Vili's grandmother was talking like that. That poor girl, Mary Kay. Oh, come on, man. Come on. Let's see. Anyway, we will wrap him up next Friday. We will be all done with this here text. So if you have final thoughts, I want to make sure I get in as well. I met Suna at the trial. She was rough. Wait a minute. Got a little far ahead. We'll get there. Let me see. My notes from this week. Okay. They do a little more fussing at Steve. Miss David Gerke, I suspect he got a lot of money out of this case. Now, he says vaguely that he just got a couple trips, whatever that means. I don't know. Did you get to go overseas, or you went to Mississippi? I don't know what that means. He said he got a couple trips. But I've seen him in a number of documentaries and like television programs and things. So my suspicion, he's not just popping up in these movies like free of charge, and then whatever he got via Mary Kay and such. So I suspect Mr. Gerke got a few nickels off of this case. We might have not have been told the truth. When Michelle and Kate are talking about Mary Kay, and they say where they get this article in the Globe, it's talking about all this sexual activity, and they're reading it. They say the article's description, blah, blah, blah. Kate and I thought at one point the affair she had with Vili was nothing more than sexual obsession. Maybe that's all it was, really. She said, Mary Kay, it was this incredibly spiritual, passionate thing when it was nothing more than this heightened sexual state that she goes into. That's another one like, what? What? Wait a minute. Like, what does that even mean? A heightened sexual state. And in this state, you just grab anybody, 12-year-old child, it doesn't, my sex organs is going crazy. What? And you call that love? Come on, man. Like, they get your hormones together. If your hormones are that out of control, then you don't need to teach. Let's see. When they did the whole prison escape thing in the first section, I was thinking, if that had been like me, retired firefighter, Bill Cosby, we were going to see Diddy, give him counsel. We go in, we talk, we leave. Or, I don't know, maybe we tried to sneak him some Newport cigarettes or whatever. Oh, and then it was the picture. That's what it. We pull out the iPhone, get a quick picture. Stay strong, Diddy. Stay strong. We snap our quick picture. We all got our black power fist, and we scamper. We run out to hop in the Tesla. The guard said, wait a minute. Bill, stop. Firefighter, stop. Get back. I think they might have opened fire. Like, oh, Lord, at least some non-lethal rounds would have been turned loose. Like, man, what? We said halt, and these nigger males gonna run. Who do you think you are? Banned from the prison? That might be a charge in and of itself. Like, what are you doing? You smuggling fentanyl in here? What's going on? What does it mean to be white? That's another one. If it had been reversed, so Vili's brother, he out robbing Fualaau jackets. They had done something like that at the prison. What does it mean to be white? All done. Next week we will wrap it up here. The last little teaspoon from Gregg Olsen and Mary Kay Letourneau. We'll be here tomorrow. They had a case happening right now with a teacher about the same age as Mary Kay, and she raped a 14-year-old. Now, the only reason I didn't include it was because it was a white student, but it did give me the Mary Kay, all of that. He came out, the victim, and he said, hey, don't be running around here saying I'm not a victim because I'm a male. Boys can be raped. Vili. And I don't know if you'll hear the same sort of commentary. I guess maybe I should give the name so we can look, so that they talk about this boy the same way they talk about Vili, because this is a white boy. They say, you know this is your fantasy. She was just showing you the road. You know you're not no victim. See if they talk to him that way. We'll be here Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Compensatory call-in. Catch up on what's been going down the past 7 days. Drink your water. Drink your water. Sobriety would be best. Mary Kay, when they got caught, when she was breaking her release violations or conditions of her release, said they went to the movies and then they went to the 7-Eleven. Drinking malt liquor. Preserve your brain computer. Apparently, Mary Kay doesn't want you with a high-functioning brain computer where you might have, this white chick kind of manipulative, man. I don't have to keep an eye on Mary. Have another sip. Have another sip. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you remind us to stop saying not all white people are racist. Stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay. Stop name-calling people classified as black, which may include Vili. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. No problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.